Alright, so there's that.
I know I probably can't, but can I help?
No, I just need to get logged into Chrome on this, then we're good to go. Alright,
Takes longer to like change the IP address.
yeah, so, yeah, because we'd have to reset that whole thing, change the IP address, reboot it again.
If we didn't have the workshop in here, we would have figured it out.
Yep.
I knew that would probably mess with it. Yeah.
No, that's not what I want.
I was like, maybe you say you need Chrome? How about I turn this so you don't have to turn around?
No,
And you can look at that screen?
my God, why is it doing this?
Because you're stressed?
Yeah.
You can't see?
There you go, spell right. Thanks, Kate. Of course, that freezes. So that's fine. There you go. You're good. Stay there. You're good.
All right, welcome everybody. It's 7:10.
All right, 1 second.
my wife just texted me and said, what's going on by our house? There's these ambulance and a cop car. And I'm going, well, first of all, I don't get that kind of information. And I bet that's where they're going though. So like, I don't know. Hope everybody's okay though.
But you're the mayor.
I know. I've even got to explain to my own wife. I don't get a text every single time somebody's going somewhere. I don't know what's going on. All right, let's try this again. We're good? Okay, 7:11 PM. We'll call this meeting to order. If everybody would please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes, Councilmember Heidi Robinson. Here. Gettle,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Billings, here, and Glover.
Here. All right, thank you. First up, we've got the Unified Police Report. We'll hear from Chief Thomas, and tonight's a special night that we get both UPD and UFA, since I think the last meeting we couldn't have either of you, so this works out.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm gonna just briefly touch over my February stat report. It was a little bit late coming. I know that the financials, we were waiting on those, so I put out a partial report till we got those. In February, we had 2,248 calls for service. 830 of those were actual general offense reports, which we did an investigation on. We had an unusually high month for citations. A lot of that being our selective traffic enforcement shift, which is a overtime shift funded by the city to just go out and do traffic safety throughout. Lieutenant Malone's with me here tonight. He has made it so that report basically hits the entire city. We hear the, kind of the trouble spots, the Monroes, the Princetons, anything like that, we get a lot of citizens complaint, and we have some officers go out there and do saturation traffic enforcement in those areas. But we did 922 traffic citations in the city, 70 of those being warnings, 852 were penalty citations, and 566 were done through a selective overtime shift. I'm proud to say that Dottie Weiss, I've kind of been telling you that she's the UDOT safety lady that I talked into coming and looking at our lighting under the bridge. She finally got that. She actually went over and looked at that light that was going to be months and months and waiting on some funding. And she looked at the semaphore there and kind of came up with a unique idea. And they actually put just a single photocell light on that semaphore, so we didn't have to wait for that one underbridge deck lighting to get enacted. So now when you go there at night, that center island on the south side of the freeway under the overpasses is now lit up, and it's quite a bit safer. I am going to try to bring her to council one of these evenings and just give her a certificate of appreciation, because she really, it was right place, right time. The snow it was like that little moment when the plows weren't busy, and she could get some of the folks that work on the semaphores out and kind of help us with that. So it's good timing. I kind of want to brag about Sergeant Aaron Levin. He put together a multi-agency operation, and it was probably the largest multi-agency operation I've seen or been a part of. Generally, a lot of the agencies throughout the valley probably quarterly will get together and go out and determine, like Thursday through Saturday or Wednesday through Friday, and they'll just saturate cities or areas of the valley that they're familiar with. We had on the first night, which was last Wednesday, 133 officers show up for the briefing. And at first it was going to be like 70, and we're going to wonder, at the precinct where we're going to park the cars. But when I heard 130, we kind of pivoted and we actually went over to the Zion's parking lot. And I don't know if Zion's thought they were getting graded, but we briefed up over there. It went real well. I know our mayor stuck it out for a full 10-hour shift, I think Thursday evening. He got to ride, and I'm sure he'll comment on that. But the agencies involved were Unified Police, South Salt Lake, Taylorsville, Police Department, West Valley Police Department, West Jordan. We had UFA participate with the arson and bomb squad investigator. They also provided medic support in case we were to get in a critical incident. We had motor vehicle enforcement agency was there. We have, when you do these, we also put hospitals on standby because there's a lot of public safety operations going on simultaneously throughout the valley. And I would say that Aaron thought completely out of the box. He went and got a trophy. It's going to be a traveling trophy for the top agency or producer. It's still sitting above my desk. I really don't want to give it up. And I'm going to let him decide who participated the most or who deserves it. My opinion is, and I don't know if the mayor got to see it, but lately the Department of Public Safety helicopter crew has been flying almost nightly, and I hear those guys up, and for the way they can get over a police incident, and if we have a stolen car or perhaps someone that's fleeing, they can call out maps, directions, roadways, dead ends. They're amazing. That would be my choice personally, but I'll let Aaron be the bad guy when he decides who gets that trophy. But it is going to be a traveling trophy, and hopefully this will spur other agencies to jump on board, and we can get more of these going throughout the summer. So just some overall stats after the operation, and it was quite successful. We had 37 felony arrests, 32 misdemeanor arrests, total of 69 arrests. 28 of those arrests were drugs or drug initiated. 23 were fugitives. We recovered 10 stolen vehicles. We booked 33 people in jail. 14 were released on citation. We have another 16 that are being screened through the district attorney's office on charges related to the enforcement operation. So our main goal on that is public safety, taking some bad guys into custody. But at the same time, when you have that much enforcement out and these people run, you got to do it in a safe and controlled manner. So our command and control was the key, and we were successful. So I'm sure the mayor will have a few things to say about that during his report or.
Yeah, can I?
Absolutely.
Those numbers you just gave, was that just UPD areas or was that every agency?
That was valley-wide. Okay. Yep. I do want to point out that we had a fairly large police activity March 21st at the station at Midvale apartment complex. We had a domestic violence stabbing where the suspect had actually retreated up into the apartment. The suspect refused to surrender. So due to the safety for officers and public, we did a limited evacuation of the facility. We had our special victims unit there. We had SWAT team. We had negotiators. We used drones, our drone unit, our K9 teams, our forensics unit. All in all, it ended up being a safe surrender. The suspect was taken safely into custody. He's being charged with attempted homicide for the assault. Special thanks, and this is the first time I've heard this, where our PIO as well as our SWAT personnel said, you need to go get a hold of the apartment manager there and thank her for all her help. It sounds like she was with us the entire time, providing keys, providing video for some investigative follow-up. I've never in all of these times had anyone, our people come to us and say, you need to thank that person, that citizen, for helping us out. So I want to point out Bianca Lopez, and I did send her a quick thank you, and I CC'd the mayor. She said she's happy to help us anytime. So hopefully she doesn't have to help us again like that. I want to point out we'll be assisting this Saturday with a special Olympic event at the Top Golf facility. They did this last year. They have some of their athletes that are going to be, I don't know what the participation, if it's long drive contest or what, but they have a lot of fun. So we're going to rotate our officers through there during the day. When we determine what time they're actually going to have a ceremony, we're going to make sure we're there to kind of spice it up for them and see if we can get some public safety to support them. I want to remind you that this Friday at, I think it's 10:15, the Catholic Church is going to do their Good Friday walk where they take the walking of the cross throughout the avenues. I noticed today that Fifth Avenue wouldn't be an option for them because of the construction. And then when I came in tonight, Main Street wouldn't be option for them, but they'll get that cross through there one way or another. It'll be interesting. So we'll see how that goes. Last but not least, I did provide you right before council with that summary of our officers, including our officer of the year. Officer Abear is currently in Moab jeeping, so he's once again eluded us when we tried to recognize him. We tried to surprise him with his Officer of the Year award during our last bid, and ironically, he got involved in a really extensive case at the elementary school that, well, you don't even want to hear about. But the guy doesn't stop working. If you ask him to do something, he returns a product that is above and beyond. So one of these days, I'll try to sneak him in here to you and at least let you recognize him. Sorry to be long-winded tonight. That's all I have. Do you have any questions or concerns for me?
Is there any update on the murder at the massage parlor? I think the last you said was the suspect was still in California.
Yeah, California authorities still have him. We haven't done extradition. We're waiting for them to go through their process, and we will at that time. And it could be years. I'm not certain as to a time, but yeah, we will follow up on that.
So whatever's happening in California is pretty big deal as well.
No,
No, and they won't give him to us to.
yeah, it's the parole and probation.
Oh.
They want to work their way through. You think they would release it to a higher level of crime, but they haven't done that as of yet.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, Unified Fire Authority report, Chief Larson. Guys, see if you can top that.
You already did with the poll percentage.
That's true. People always think fire more than they like police. Sorry, Chief.
You know, he always has some quick comebacks and I have nothing. You know,
You,
he's
you always got good jokes.
well, I try. Well, thank you, Mayor, council members. It's good to be with you tonight. I was happy to have the full crew here from Station 126 for a little bit, but they got hit out on a call. Luckily, we have a couple remaining members here to help me in case I forget something. As you may recall, we started our UFA Camp 57 for our new recruits. They began their training February 1st, and they're entering now their, I think, 8th week of training, and they've got a lot of firsts behind them. And the level of fitness required to do this job is really eye-opening, and it can be quite a hurdle for some in the beginning. If you get a chance to visit our UFA website or other social media sites, we have posts there showing some of the training activities that they go through, the physical agility drills and all those type of things. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that and really give you a better picture of what they do. We're seeing great physical improvements in the short time that they've been there. They've completed their PPE and SCBA confidence drills. That's personal protective equipment and self-contained breathing apparatus, the full gear. Apparatus familiarization, driving, and hose management skills. And all the remaining candidates have successfully completed their confined space maze as well. And that always proves to be one of the greatest challenges they face. If you can imagine being in full firefighter gear in a small confined space, no light, trying to find your way out, it's quite challenging. They've also had their first live fire experiences last week in the flashover simulation prop. Councilmember Brown, you'll maybe get to experience that. That'll be pretty exciting. They also had their first interior fire experience during a controlled burning construction burn exercise. And they're really starting to come together as a group. You find that cohesion start to build throughout the camp as they start to learn to rely on each other for many different things. So they're embracing the new challenges with excitement and really having a good time. Station 125 is getting a new fire apparatus, a Type 1 engine that will have a Cummins 500 horsepower engine, 1,500 gallon per minute waterous pump, and a 750 gallon water tank. We're also getting 6 new ambulances. I think they're already in this month. They're going to be put into service quickly. 5 are mounted on an international chassis, and the others a Dodge Ram for those that might be interested in that. They're all equipped 4-wheel drive, and The other two of the three Type 1 engines are going in the Holiday Station and the Taylorsville Station. Let's see. Just as a reminder, I think I'd mentioned this previously in a report about a month ago. Our EMS division is moving our CPA certification course around the service area. So that'll be available for Midvale if they would like some CPR training. The signup's available on our UFA website. You can also contact me and I can coordinate that with our medical division and Division Chief Rob Ayers. And we can let you know when and where we should be able to make it happen. Just real quickly, our March safety message that has been made available for your social media for distribution is on cooking safety. Cooking is the #1 cause of fires in the home. That includes single family homes, apartment buildings. That's true here locally. It's true nationally. By the numbers, 2/3 of home cooking fires start with the ignition of food or other cooking material. Clothing is the first item ignited in cooking fires. Clothing was the first item in less than 1%. However, it accounted for 8% of the home cooking fire deaths. Ranges or cooktops account for over half of the fire incidents, and unattended equipment is a huge factor in over 1/4 of the home cooking fires and half of the deaths. There's some other information, some safety information on how to be safe in the kitchen while you're cooking. I encourage you to check it out on our social media website and also the ones that Midvale has. Division Chief Steve Ball retired March 1st. He was the division chief over our Special Enforcement Division. He started with UFA in 2000. And he was heavily involved with Chief Thomas and other UPD officers in SWAT training and preparation, SWAT medic particularly with our group. And he was very instrumental in some high quality training for our arson investigation crew and bomb training. He'd been back to many national sites, the FBI and others for training, pass that on to his staff. In my view, and from my experience around the country, talking to other fire marshals and knowing what they do here, the arson investigation team you have here is top notch. And I think that's largely due to Chief Ball and a lot of the things that he instituted while he was here. So we'll miss him, but we wish him well in his retirement. And last, and I wish the rest of the crew could have been here. It's like Chief Thomas mentioned, I guess they just have a knack of kind of getting out of recognition sometimes. However, not on purpose, they left with good reason. But I would like to mention your Station 126. Last January, they responded on a full arrest. Now, maybe I should preface this with this morning, our Chief Burchett visited Station 126 to present them with a life-saving award. I recognize their efforts in this particular call. So in January, they responded to a full arrest. Upon arrival, they found the patient not breathing and no pulse. And they immediately began advanced cardiac life support interventions. After 4 defibrillations or shocks and administration of some life-saving drugs, particular to that type of situation presented, and immediate transport to Intermountain Medical Center, they were able to get him there revived, pass him on to the ER staff. And I hope I do this justice. You guys let me know if I do or not. Okay, all right. So to what?
Do you want to come forward to the microphone?
Yeah, come on
Share
up.
those details.
Come
And will you just state your name so we've got it?
Name is Trent Martin for the record.
Thank you.
I'll talk about paramedic Bertram, Captain Chad Green, and specialist Ben Singer. So on this full arrest, the first one where they shocked multiple times, one of the things that was out of the ordinary on this was paramedic Bertram decided to administer an antiarrhythmic medication. Normally you administer one dose within our protocols, and that's it. But in this particular case, he decided to go beyond our protocols, contacting the hospital and advising the doctor he was going to give a second dose because of the condition this patient was still in, which is what ended up saving their life. In the second life-saving ward as well, it was another situation where it came in as an overdose. And so any competent medic at any of the stations in this state could have followed the natural treatment path, and this person could have ended up dead, and that would have been deemed a normal cause, kind of an acceptable outcome almost. But because they decided to treat it as a witnessed arrest and work it and transport quickly, that person also was able to be saved. Both patients, no deficits, coming back to full quality of life. So I want to recognize that because even within our culture, we're pretty high performing. Both of those calls, they went above and beyond just normal knowledge. And that's typical, I think, of all the crews at 126, which is my station. I'm biased. But none of those paramedics, none of your firefighters or your captains there are content with just coming to work and doing the status quo. They each push themselves pretty hard every day that we're here to go above beyond, not only physically to meet our standards, but also medically and when we interact with the public as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks. I didn't have that detail here, so I'm glad you were still here to provide
I
that.
think he's coming for your job.
You know what? I was just gonna say retirement's coming up and we might have a new liaison.
Those details were really helpful. Sure.
Yeah, I hope that gives you some idea of the quality of care and the professionalism and training that these individuals have. When I give the quarterly reports, you know, I throw a bunch of numbers up there. This is what some of those numbers represent. And so I hope when I give them in the future, you'll think about these types of incidences and what they do. The crew at station 126 and 125 that are serving your community, they're exceptional. And I'm not being prejudicial or biased or anything like that. You can tell from the way he spoke that they know what they're doing, and the citizens here are in good hands. So anyway, I'm sad that they weren't here. If they make it back, maybe we can have them stand if they get back. That'd be good.
We'll see. Yeah, We'll
Okay.
see if they come.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, that's my report. Any questions?
Okay, seeing none.
Okay, thank you.
Chief. All right, we'll move into public comments. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for a public hearing on the agenda tonight may address the city council at this point by stepping to the microphone and stating their name for the record. We do have one public hearing tonight that is sorry, we have two public hearings tonight, not one. Dealing with the text amendment and a rezone. So if that's what you're here for, you'll have time for that later on. Otherwise, we'll move into that. Recognizing that I think we've got a few folks that might be looking to give public comments. So 3 minutes each is what you got. Want to make sure that anybody who wants to give public comment has that ability to do so. Just please stick within that 3 minutes is my ask. But with that, you're welcome to step forward, just please, and then state your name for the record, and the timer should start. Olivia's already agreed to tell me if there seems to be a weird blip with the timer, but I think we'll be all right.
Hey everyone, my name's Olivia Marin. I am a constituent of Bonnie's. I'm in District 1. I'm here to call on Midvale City Council to pass a ceasefire resolution. There have been countless examples of other cities, states, or political parties passing a ceasefire resolution, with New Mexico's Democratic Party being the most recent to do so. Today, they passed a 74% in favor vote of the ceasefire resolution, calling for a few things that I am encouraging all of you, Midvale City Council, to call for as well. There are 4 things that need to be agreed on, which are, and I quote, number 1, urgently calling for and facilitating negotiations for a de-escalation and a ceasefire. This call to action is the most important. We are 171 days into watching this genocide in Gaza being live streamed on our phones. We cannot get food, medical aid, water, and more into Gaza if it is continuously being carpet bombed. Number 2, we need to immediately send and facilitate the delivery of adequate humanitarian aid, including fuel, water, food, medical supplies, and medical personnel into Gaza. In the last 24 hours, the international humanitarian law has been deemed twisted by Israel in order to justify their actions against the Palestinians in Gaza. Today, the UN Special Reporter, Francesca Albanese, has ruled that genocide is being committed by Israel in her report titled The Anatomy of a Genocide. Number 3, we need to pause all US military aid to Israel and call for all combatants, allies, to stop shipping weapons into the war zone. Israel needs to be sanctioned so that history does not continue to repeat itself. Number 4, we need to secure the release of Israeli civilians being held hostage and Palestinian political prisoners being detained. We also need to allow foreign nationals freedom of movement. A ceasefire is the only way to get Israeli hostages out of Gaza, and it's the only way to get the 134 Israeli hostages and 10,000 plus political prisoners back from Israel. You say that international affairs are not on your plate as a city council or as a mayor, and I am here to tell you why international affairs, especially when it comes to a genocide, needs to be on your radar. There has been a rise of Islamophobia, anti-Arab discrimination, and anti-Semitism in the Salt Lake Valley and across the nation in these last few months. A 6-year-old Muslim boy was stabbed over 20 times by his landlord. A local rabbi called the pro-Palestinian liberation community a pro-terror mob that was calling for his annihilation because we were wearing mask kufiyas and we were asking for a permanent ceasefire. So, thank you.
We're actually pretty friendly. I mean, if not just saying, like, we're.
I'll get nervous coming up here. My name is Sarah Anderson. I'm also here to ask that the Midvale City Council pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. By now, all of us have seen and heard the suffering happening in the region. And as Olivia mentioned, over 100 communities in the US have called for a ceasefire by now. As a mother of 2 small children, I wanted to speak to you today from my heart and from the things that we've all been seeing, but just as a reminder of my reasons, some of the many reasons. There are mothers in Gaza who are miscarrying, giving birth to stillborn children because of unimaginable, unrelenting stress of carrying a child under bombardment and famine. There are mothers in Gaza who cannot breastfeed their children because they themselves are starving. A mother in Gaza asked if she could feed her own hand to her starving children. There are mothers in Gaza watching their children wither from starvation, emaciated, their frail little bodies eating themselves. And there are 50,000 pregnant mothers in Gaza who have had to evacuate on foot, carrying their possessions and their children, walking miles to uncertainty, only to be relocated again and again and again. And there are mothers in Gaza delivering children via C-section without anesthesia. There are mothers in Gaza who have watched their children blown up in front of their own eyes. There are mothers in Gaza who write their children's names on their arms and legs so they can be identified in the case that they're crushed under the rubble of their home while sleeping in the night. There are mothers in Gaza who have no more children because their entire family has been killed. There are fathers in Gaza who could only find pieces of their children and collected their remains in plastic grocery bags. There are fathers in Gaza who have been killed while trying to obtain flour to feed their families. There are fathers in Gaza who use their bare hands to dig children out from the rubble of a home that collapsed around them because there's no fuel, electricity, or roads left to allow proper equipment in. There are fathers in Gaza who are unable to reach their children because they themselves are trapped under the rubble of their homes. And the US cannot manage to get humanitarian aid trucks or construction vehicles in to help rescue people from the rubble, but we've somehow managed to get construction vehicles in to build a temporary port. And there are fathers in Gaza whose remains are mixed in with the rubble being used to build this port. This is a small sampling of the genocide our tax dollars have funded. Genocides end when global powers intervene, and even when small communities get involved. However, they consistently and conveniently intervene too little, too late. Tonight, I'm hoping the Midvale City Council will stand up and speak out and draft a ceasefire resolution now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Hi, my name is Jenna Martin. I actually don't live in Midvale. I live in Salt Lake, but my partner does live in Midvale, and he can't be here to say today what I'm gonna say for both of us. So we had a conversation with Marcus, and that went really well, we thought, and we are looking for some solidarity from our leaders to call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Even if our little community doesn't make an impact, the whole point is to show solidarity and say, like, hey, like we cannot morally, we cannot keep sending this money while we have so many homeless people in Utah here. And we need that money for schools, for healthcare, we need it for public transit, we need it for, you know, all kinds of things. So mostly just here to say that, and ceasefire now, free Palestine. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenna.
Hello, my name's Megan. I actually live in Orem, but I also have a partner that lives in Midvale, so I am here speaking on behalf of both of us. And I'd like to add my voice to Olivia and Jenna and Sarah, and also elaborate on the responsibility that we have as international citizens and citizens here in Utah to call for an immediate ceasefire. So to continue what Olivia was talking about, I can understand the hesitancy in being the first city in Utah to pass a ceasefire resolution. However, being anti-war and anti-genocide are two things that everyone can, I'm pretty sure, agree upon. And the world is watching, and there are so many people who are waiting for more and more city councils to follow suit in passing a ceasefire resolution. Several of your constituents are heavily affected by our leaders' silence on local matters. They're a direct result of what is happening in Gaza. It would be a huge honor for the city of Midvale to make history in being one of the first city councils in Utah to pass the ceasefire resolution. And I would also like to elaborate that Utah has made history and that we are one of the first states to allow women the right to vote. And we are one of the top states for accepting and resettling refugees and within the US. We are also on an international stage, having hosted the 2002 Olympics and potentially hosting another Olympics here pretty quick. So we have an opportunity to be a light on the hill, so to speak, and potentially start a flag of lights to call for an immediate ceasefire and a rise in humanity and support for Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Soraya Vandiver. I am a constituent of Bonnie's. I also live in District 1 with Olivia, and I'm here to echo Olivia's and my peers' sentiments. I urge you guys to pass a declaration advocating for a permanent ceasefire and an end of US funding to Israel. Members of our community have faced
more and more distress as this genocide continues, and by seeing our government actively aid it by vetoing the UN ceasefire resolutions, sending funding and weapons to Israel, and threatening to restrict aid to Palestine if they testify at the ICC about Israel's war crimes. In passing this declaration, it shows the Palestinian members of our community that we stand with them, that we will not sit by and watch as their people are decimated. The 2-week ceasefire resolution passed by the UN is not enough. Israel is still actively bombing Rafah, where innocent Palestinians are trapped and cannot escape. They are wiping out entire family lineages, permanently disabling children and innocent civilians, and destroying the local environment. And they're posting these things on social media laughing. It is very intentional, their war crimes. So the ceasefire must be permanent. As a tax-paying citizen, it is extremely disheartening and disturbing to know that my hard-earned money is funding a genocide and that I have almost no power to stop it. You all as city council members have a voice that is louder than any individual citizen, and we need members of our government to stand up to what is happening. Our government has the power to help end this genocide by cutting funding and weapons to Israel, yet they don't, despite nationwide protests of citizens. So maybe they'll listen to members of the government. They know the atrocities that are happening, yet we continue to fund it. And I really urge you guys to use your voices for good, to be on the right side of history and to show your humanity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Weston, and my family lives in District 3.
Can we just get your last name too?
Nichols.
Thank you.
I stand before you today as a concerned citizen, deeply troubled by the ongoing crisis in Gaza. The recent United Nations resolution calling for a temporary ceasefire is a step forward, but it's imperative that we act with urgency to ensure a lasting peace. I urge the Midvale City Council to pass a resolution calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, as well as divestment from Israel. The situation in Gaza is dire. For 171 days, we have witnessed a genocide unfolding before our very eyes, with innocent lives being lost daily. We cannot turn a blind eye to this humanitarian crisis. It's our moral obligation to take action. First and foremost, we must urgently call for negotiations for a de-escalation and ceasefire. Lives are at stake, and we cannot afford to delay any longer. Humanitarian aid, including vital supplies like food, water, and medical assistance, must be immediately delivered to Gaza to alleviate the suffering of its people. Furthermore, it's time to pause all U.S. military aid to Israel and urge our allies to cease weapons shipments into the war zone. We cannot continue to fund the violence and devastation in Gaza. Additionally, we must advocate for complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip. Ending the military occupation is fundamental to achieving lasting peace and justice for all parties involved. I understand that some may argue that international affairs are beyond the scope of our city's council responsibilities. However, I firmly believe that we cannot ignore the impact of global events on our local community. The rise of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism in our city is deeply troubling and directly linked to the ongoing crisis in Gaza. By passing a ceasefire resolution and divesting from Israel, we send a clear message of solidarity with the Palestinian people and join over 100 American cities in pressuring the U.S. government to end its support for the violence in Palestine. Moreover, as a city that aspires to host the 2032 Winter Olympics, we must demonstrate our commitment to promoting peace and justice on the global stage. If we are to be a welcoming and multicultural hub, we cannot ignore the plight of the Palestinian people. I understand that this issue may be divisive, but it's essential to emphasize that calling for a ceasefire is not anti-Semitic. We stand with solidarity with Jewish organizations and community members who advocate for peace in the region. Furthermore, the environmental consequences of the conflict cannot be ignored. The devastation caused by bombing and untreated sewage poses a threat not only to Gaza, but the entire world. In conclusion, I urge the Midvale City Council to take a stand for peace, justice, and human rights by passing a ceasefire resolution and divesting from Israel. Let us be a beacon of hope for the oppressed and a voice for the voiceless. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other public comments? Okay.
Mayor, can we discuss just amongst ourselves, now that we've heard from 5 or 6 folks urging us to do this? I know we've acted on resolutions and issues like this with far fewer number of people asking us to do it. So I don't know if it's appropriate or if the rest of the council might want to discuss what they're asking us to do. I mean, I'd be happy to share my own thoughts.
I'm happy if you kick off. I'm also happy to give a kind of my view of the recap of the conversation I had with at least the group that came
Okay,
and met
yeah,
with
why don't we
me.
start with that? Because I don't think we were
Yeah,
briefed
still
on
haven't set an
that
update
yet.
on any of that. I felt like it was a good conversation. I hope I don't say anything that feels misrepresented. The thing where I said I was at, was needing to be able to connect to what is, how does Midvale City make the impact on this, of how does us doing a resolution create a better outcome for those who are in this horrible situation in Gaza. The other piece that we had talked about was the wanting to, and I think this is where I don't know, I felt like it was most interesting. Because I had talked about and actually brought up the idea that I don't want to be put in a position. This isn't something, a conflict, not to this level, but a conflict that has been going on for a long time, and it feels uncomfortable for me to step in and say, "Oh, I feel like this is how we should say to do something," because it is just not my realm at all, and I'm absolutely ignorant in that. And so what I was trying to express too is, I think there's certain language for me, like, hey, we shouldn't be killing people. Like that to me is pretty easy. And then there's other things that were brought up where I'm going, this is starting to get into a space, the divest stuff of like, and again, I think in my mind of just as I'm thinking about it right now, like divesting in war is one thing, or like divesting altogether is another. And again, it's just a space in my own mind where I'm like, I don't know. I'm not, it's not my expertise at all. And it feels uncomfortable for me to insert into this. And I tried to express that in this meeting. So one of the things that I suggested, and it's a big ask on these folks who I think are doing a lot of organizing in different areas right now, or different cities and communities, is because I was saying, if we were going to do anything that got into that muckier space, I don't know how to word that right now, that I would feel the need to go and talk with the Jewish community and say, is this something that you're comfortable with? And then I'm going, we don't have anybody on staff here who has the ability to go like become an international expert. And I don't know how I would do that. And so then that's my hesitancy. And so I had suggested, have you thought about going and talking with members of the Jewish community, coming up with like a joint resolution and then presenting that to cities? Because I think that would remove a lot of the concerns. They point out, hey, we're volunteers too. And I get that. And so I get that that's a big lift. So I mean, that's a very short version. We talked for a while, but I think that's kind of where it landed, was not a no, but a here are my concerns. And I think if there was some work, then like I'm open to the conversation. They said they would go back, continue to talk, and then potentially come and meet again. So I think that's the quick recap.
I just want to jump in here because I met with Olivia and I mean, it's very compelling, and I do agree with the mayor on definitely being open to the conversation and kind of being progressive in how that goes. And again, not a no, but also just keeping an open mind about that conversation.
I was, well, first of all, I think all of us up here recognize that what's happening now is not something that we condone or tolerate. I mean, that's obvious. I hope that's obvious to those of you who have spoken so passionately for this. I was struck, just by doing some research. There have been 100 communities in the United States now that have passed some sort of resolution. So before, my thinking was, there haven't been a lot of communities doing that. Now there have been. The tide has turned a little bit, where I think public opinion is definitely on the side of inching towards a calling for a ceasefire. Well, I mean, the United Nations kind of made that clear today, or yesterday. So anyway, all of this to say, the resolution that was passed in New Mexico is something that I can definitely get behind, because it's taken a lot of the political talk out of this issue and just narrowed it to the 4 points that you mentioned. Calling for de-escalation, immediately sending humanitarian assistance, pausing military aid. That one can get a little tricky for us as council members, because the Biden administration's not really going to listen to Midvale City Council if we tell them to please pause military aid to Israel. And then the 4th one, securing the release of civilians held hostage, Israeli or Palestinians. I think that's very important to make sure that we include what's happening to unfortunate civilians on the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. So if it were kept to those 4 points that were passed by the Democratic Party of New Mexico, I could get behind that as a city. Just my vote personally. I don't know how the other council members feel. So if that was something that could be comfortable for us to discuss, and that would be a point where if there were members of other communities who wanted to come to speak against it, we will reach out to them, I'm sure, and invite them, but they'll hopefully know that their opinion is valued as well, and we can have that discussion then. That's where I stand.
I'm gonna quickly play the part of Garrett, in that, I know we will oftentimes sort of respond to folks, but I think if we're having a council deliberation on the topic, I think because it wasn't on the agenda, that starts to become difficult. That being said, as you know, the rules of what it takes for a council member to request an item to be on the next agenda. So I mean, I've kind of already heard some interest in that, and so we can sort of go down that road if that's a request from a council member to have this item on a future agenda. But I do think that as far as like having a deliberation now, I would say that it's not on the agenda. Probably shouldn't do that.
Okay, I will save further comment for our council reports then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, at this point, moving forward. Great, thank you. All right, moving into reports then. First up for me, I think I've mentioned this once before to the council. So as a reminder, I went and knocked over 70 businesses along 7200 South, since we've been hearing more concerns around especially crime in that area. And so we wanted to hear directly from those businesses. We held 2 different meetings. Chief, appreciate all the support of that and having your officers there to work with these businesses. Really wanted to make sure that they were connected to our officers, especially our shelter officers who work directly in that area. And it was really good to see. I mean, I definitely think all those businesses have their challenges, but many of them were already connected into the resources we have, which was great to see. And I think very appreciated that we were doing this. So we did collect some feedback. I don't know that we got anything groundbreaking out of that. on the feedback side, but it was really good where, you know, Sergeant Richardson, who oversees the shelter officers, he made sure to reiterate that, you know, they'll go meet with any business. So if any of us up here are hearing from a business that is having any kind of challenges, again, whether it be crime or homelessness related, that these officers will go and meet with them, talk to them about how kind of their expertise on how they can improve the safety around their business. And I definitely think that was appreciated. Again, just reiterating that to those businesses. Somebody asked me earlier if I was going to have a long report, and I said no, and I lied apparently. The other random thing today that I think is good for our community, if you remember, there's the Utah Homelessness Council, but state legislation removed mayors from that except for two. So it's Salt Lake City mayor is an automatic member of that. And then all the other communities that host a qualifying shelter, and that's like, I think I want to say 30 beds or more. So there's, I'm going to throw this number out, it's probably wrong, 14 communities across the state that qualify in that number. Are part of this Shelter Cities Advisory Group. That group voted today to appoint their Shelter City representative to that board. They appointed me. So I went into that truly thinking that they were going to select somebody outside of Salt Lake County. But I was happy to be nominated and voted in. So the board will now be called the Utah Homeless Services Board. The first official meeting of that board is in May. And so I'll continue to serve on that. And at this point, representing us, but also all the shelter communities in the state from a municipality perspective. So just so you know, just so everybody knows, as Chief, as Larson, you were talking about this, it made me think I should bring this up. At UFA's meeting last week, we did a kind of an evaluation of Chief Burchett. That's the thing that prompted me to say, oh yes, we've been meaning to do that for Matt, so we'll do that next week. But it was really good. In short, you know, we talked to essentially senior staff, the command staff of that organization. We talked to labor. Everybody recognized that Chief Burchett, there have been some really difficult conversations over there with labor around mandatory overtime they're requiring of everybody with staffing levels. And things like that have been quite challenging. And there was a recognition from everybody that we spoke to that Burchett has been doing a really good job at just communicating, kind of standing on his own morals and where he's at and what's best for the long-term stability of the organization, but making sure that he's giving everybody a place at the table and communicating. Really, the only piece of feedback that we wanted to make sure Burchett listened to was that everybody said he needed to take more vacation. And so we made sure that we passed that along. So just thought you all might like to hear that. And then lastly, as Chief Thomas said, I went on this multi-agency ride along last Thursday night, 10 hours. Poor Levin, this is my second ride along with him, and he's now sat in a car with me for 20 hours, 2 different 10-hour shifts. So we've gotten to know each other a little bit, so that's been nice. But it's always really interesting to see. We went on again because it was multi-agency throughout the night. We kind of jumped around to different areas. Like we weren't just in Midvale the whole time. Every agency was kind of helping each other out. And so we served a warrant in West Jordan on a house that was well known for selling drugs out of it. And that was fascinating to see. They made me sit in the car, and I was with a 19-year-old who was the kid of somebody, and that made me feel like a child. I was like, oh, I'm sitting with the 19-year-old in the car, but
He was what, 2 years younger than you?
yeah, exactly. But it was good. Several, I mean, really, I feel like, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it felt like there was a focus on stolen vehicles that night. So that was really interesting. And the one quick story with that, it wasn't me. I wasn't doing any of this. I was just, as Chief said, I was just in the passenger seat screaming. And they pulled over this guy who was in a nicer stolen vehicle. And they were trying to get his name, and it was clear he wasn't given a real name. And the guy just he was probably around my age or a little younger, probably mid-20s. And he just he had his head down, and he just looked so disappointed. And and Levin was trying to pull up his information, and he looks at Levin and he says, "Don't you remember arresting me at Royal Inn?" And Levin just immediately goes, dude, I arrested you for a stolen vehicle a few months ago. What are you doing? But it was interesting to see. I mean, not only we hear about this all the time of you all are out there doing your job, but we're seeing these folks, right back out on the street. But I think also Levin just approached that in such a just humanity of just recognizing like, dude, I don't see you as a bad guy, but like, we got to change your behavior here and why, like, we just went through this and why are you doing this? And so it's really interesting, seeing them literally lay down the law, but also treat people with dignity and respect as they're going through that process. So it was a fascinating night and just appreciated that opportunity. All right, Councilmember Glover.
Nothing this evening.
Okay, Councilmember Billings.
I just have a couple of things. I've had the last couple of weeks, have met with several constituents, and it's been great. I know that I'm new to this position and new to them, so I'm just really enjoying hearing those concerns and helping to solve some issues. I am going to be hosting a conversation with the neighborhood in the Casa Rojas area in my district. Basically to have open dialogue and working together to improve our neighborhoods and create connections around safety in our neighborhoods. Mayor Stevenson is going to join us, as well as Chief Thomas. And I'm really excited about that. And to get that going, it'll be April 9th, 6:30 here at City Hall. And I've already connected with a few of the constituents. It sounds like they're all on board. And then we'll be advertising it to the neighborhood as well to make sure as many people can get there and have that conversation with us.
Thank you. Councilmember Gettle. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things real quick. One easy, one harder. Well, I don't know. We'll see. So some residents reached out behind Topgolf who live close to the Bingham Junction Park, which has a nice little trail that goes around the park, kind of in a circle there. Wondering if we had any plans, and I know the answer to that, we don't yet, but wondering if there were plans to connect that trail to the Jordan River Trail. And I'm assuming they don't mean like through some sort of really expensive bridge over 7,200, because that would be impossible. But there might be a way to connect it further north where it would meet up in Murray. So I was wondering if we could maybe take a look at that and see if there was any feasible way to connect that trail in that neighborhood with the Jordan River Trail. So I know not to put anyone on the spot, and research that now and let me know by the end of the meeting, but just something, if we could look into that and maybe give them an answer. There were quite a few residents who were interested in that. And, any connectivity that we can get to the Jordan River Trail, I think would be amazing. Second thing, just to follow up on the folks who were here for the ceasefire resolution. It's one of those things that we have discussed as a council and didn't really think that it pertained much to our duties as city council members. And, I'm not saying that I'm for or against, I'm not saying that I'll vote for or against the resolution, but like I said, we have had people come to us for issues that we've acted on and voted up or down, when there were less than 6 or 7 or 8 people. So, at this point, I think that we could look into, drafting something, sort of take out all of the divisive language that's not that they were mentioning today, but, some of the divisive language that has been in other resolutions nationwide, and maybe think about voting on that as a council. They made some strong points tonight, and I think they've made strong points with meetings with Councilmember Billings and Mayor Stevenson. So I think, as constituents of ours, some of them were, some of them weren't, we can have a discussion about it, and the votes will be what they will be. And I think at least they'll have an answer. I just hate whenever people, we tell residents to, engage your government more, and then when they do, we don't do anything about it. So, I think a simple up or down vote, if it passes, great. If it fails, at least they have an answer to the question. So anyway, I would be the council member, I guess, if it takes one, to say, let's put that on as a discussion item at our not next not necessarily the next council meeting, but the next meeting when, you know, you think you have something worth discussing.
So the next two meetings are April 2nd and the 16th.
So probably not April 2nd. Since it's it's just a few days away. But yeah, maybe by the 16th, if we have something available by then.
Can I get clarification? Because us getting a resolution is different than a discussion.
Well,
So
yeah,
since
just
was
put it
happening-
on as a like our normal process, discussion item, resolution, we'll discuss it, and then I mean, we can go straight to an
No,
action item.
I was just wondering if you wanted us to come back with a discussion on the 2nd
Okay,
with the, and then prep the document. for
Yeah.
the 16th.
that sounds good. And for me, my direction on this would be, and I looked at it in detail, the resolution that they mentioned in New Mexico has all of that kind of divisive language out of it. I think that would be a good place to start and mirror that if we can, and you know, discuss amongst the council members if that's something we're comfortable voting for or against.
Really quickly, just because I know we've got two in the audience that are here for that item. So I think you just caught that discussion item a week from today. Now, that's not necessarily a public hearing, but we will have public comment that we do put the packet on the state's website. Do you know the exact link?
Yeah.
It'll be publicly available, and so it can be reviewed, and then you can give general public comment on it. There won't be a public hearing directly related to that item, though. And I'll try to communicate that with Olivia as well. If I remember to, but I'll try to.
Okay, that's all for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Not really fun. Councilmember Brown.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't have anything today.
Okay, Councilmember Robinson.
Like that.
Sorry, it kind of shocked me. I had two things I actually wanted to say. First of all, I had two different groups of residents reach out to me on two different things. And I wanted to say thank you to Public Works for making sure that our streets and everything are taken care of. First, I had a resident on Monroe and Princeton Drive reach out. She wanted to say thank you for adding the solar lights to the stop signs. Apparently that's made a big difference in the neighborhood. So just wanted to say thank you for that. And then as well, the no parking signs on Durham and State Street. I've already had 4 or 5 people reach out to me on what a big difference that's made. So really wanted to express my gratitude for that, and also for UPD for enforcing that. I know sometimes it's weird when we make those quick changes. So I just wanted to say thanks for everyone for making sure that everybody's safe out there.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Brown having nothing and Councilmember Robinson having 2 things. This
She
is
wouldn't stop.
weird.
She just kept going.
This is so
I
weird.
could take up stereotypes. He didn't.
Yeah, fair enough. City Manager Dahl.
I have nothing.
Okay. All right, let's move on to business for our first public hearing tonight. Item A, consider a rezone request for 2 properties located at 8253 South Main Street. It is proposed that the properties currently zoned regional commercial be rezoned to multifamily residential medium to high density. Information regarding the proposed regulations, prohibitions, and permitted uses that the property will be subject to if the rezone is adopted can be found in the Midvale City Code 1774. We are going to hear from Vendaline. We're on the wrong presentation.
While Matt pulls that up, I'm just going to get started. This isn't very complicated. This amendment is located almost kitty corner from Public Works. It's the other side of the street and a little further south. And the petitioner is asking to change what's currently zoned regional commercial into the high density residential zone, the RM25. And if you look at the packet, there's a concept plan included that shows, you know, what would potentially happen if that rezone gets approved. The owner is basically proposing to finish up the existing apartment community that's immediately to the east of this parcel. And there is just a portion of the land there that's zoned commercial instead of residential. Matt, I can also just plug in and do it from my computer.
Is this the, there's an existing home there, right?
Yes, yeah, there are 2 existing homes.
Okay. 2.
This doesn't make a lot of sense to me as far as the way parking works. I mean, the 24 unit's gonna have 12 parking spots adjacent to it, and the 12 unit's gonna have 27 units, 27 spots adjacent to it. What are they just hoping that they? I mean, it might fit the number, but it's not very friendly, right? Like if you have to walk across a field to get to your spot, I don't, these plans just seem lazy to me. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah, I mean, this is more about the rezone. I mean, there's no development agreement or anything involved. I mean, it's a concept. I mean, this hasn't been, fully vetted in that sense because we're not, the way the zoning is currently, they couldn't do that because it's not zoned for it.
Do you have a
Oh, it
map?
does underground. I don't know. Sorry.
Sorry. I'm picturing it. I mean, I'm looking at it, but I also
Yeah.
know where it is. I only know of one existing housing structure there. So I'm not, where's the second one?
Let's see.
Okay, there's 2 on that map.
The lower portion there's a darker roof.
Oh, okay. And there's, okay. I got it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I assume you're the applicant. Is that assumption correct? Okay. Just want to make sure I'm on the same page here.
Yeah, so are there any other questions? The zoning map, let's maybe put that up as well.
I think as far as the rezone goes, like it makes sense to me to rezone it, but I think it just gives all of us pause wondering what could then be put there.
Yeah. I mean, it's as I said, it's an extension of the apartment community. The ins and outs, that's the subject of the conditional use permit that would potentially come if you approve this.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine, I guess, but it's a very, I feel like we want our main and center and stuff to be sort of, if we're going denser and whatnot, to have a little bit more. I mean, this is just like a 1990s looking, thing, right? Like there's no mixed use, I don't know. It's like I said, it's just okay. And I don't know, I'm hoping all these areas would turn over a little bit more to be a little bit more than just, this sort of, I call it more like middle dense looking stuff without, mixed use or whatever, but it's probably better than, nothing, right? It completes the project.
And I will say in defense of those apartment complexes, which I believe now are in Councilmember Brown's district, used to be mine, very well run.
Yeah.
Apartment complex and one of the more affordable apartment complexes, if not the most affordable in that area. So if it's an extension of that, I see the value to adding that, even more units, hopefully similar in price to the to the others. But yeah, I just didn't want anyone to think we were calling out the that apartment complex. I think it is very well run and has been a great partner with Midvale City.
Well, yeah, I'm mostly just the front on Main Street, right? Like our road fronts, our main streets, just want a look or whatever, right? That's just a little more, modern and and the way things are going, and this isn't, but the apartments themselves are fine. They're there.
The applicant can also maybe explain this a little more. There actually is a mixed use component to this, and that's why we have the next item on the agenda. But they're accomplishing that not through a different zone. It's there's a neighborhood commercial provision within the RM25 zone.
Well, they
But
have
the
to
other-
come and get it approved with that like the conditional use. Is that how that works?
Yeah, yes, this is all a conditional use, but we'll get to that in the next agenda item on this agenda.
Okay.
So,
All right. Maybe I'll just stop talking until you're done talking.
Okay, any other questions for Vendeline? That was a fancy arrow that just came in.
Thank
I was really disappointed we didn't have that before. All right, well, this is a, unless you got anything else, this is a public hearing, so if there's a motion to open up the public comment period for this, I would entertain that.
Mayor, I motion we open the public comment.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, we'll move into public comment. Do we have any public comments on this item?
I don't know.
Just please state your name for the record.
My name's Carl Green. I live in West Jordan. Work for McNeil Engineering. It's just down the street in Sandy. But we're representing the owner for this property, Darrell T. Smith Plumbing, his family and his business partners. Their goal in purchasing all of the lots in this particular area was to basically extend the vision that the original owner had and completing the entire area. So it has a very similar look, all the buildings tied together and provide kind of a legacy. And that's the name of the community, is the Legacy Apartments, to Midvale and to his posterity in that area. As a part of the request to rezone it, we considered maybe asking for a mixed use zone. But in discussions with some of the folks in the planning department and with the ownership, we felt that the higher density residential would allow us to do more of what the owner was hoping, and that's to provide additional housing that are going to be very similar to what's already there. It's been noted that's very well taken care of. They take a lot of pride in what they do. But then they also wanted to explore the opportunity of bringing a little bit of community business into the space. We noticed that the existing RM25 zone allows for 1,000 square feet of neighborhood commercial space. We would really like to develop the ground floor of the north unit to be retail space that could be used by members of the community to serve other members of the community, and move forward with that. Just a quick response to the parking. The building on the south actually has parking underneath it as a part of the development. And so the goal is to try and make each of the buildings very similar to what's already there. Also, the zoning requires a fairly large landscape requirement. And so we felt that green space in the middle really helped balance the community and bring it all together. As something that would look very nice. We think it would address some of the concerns about how it would look from the main street. But especially it would provide a great space for those that would end up living there in that space.
I mean, I'm guessing the homes there now are square footage the size of an apartment anyways. They're tiny homes, right? Like, you know, maybe 900 square feet, right? If they have a basement, 1,800, I guess. So you're adding, 36 units of one, similar sized units. So it does provide housing. I just, I like the idea of turning it over, but, I just want to make sure that's a very busy road, and it's going to get a lot busier as, it develops down, down the hill. So, that's just my only concern. I'm not like anti-apartment. I just want to make sure it's, something unique and the owners understand what it's looking at. Do you know if that green space, maybe or the planners, is that going to be like a drainage thing? you know, how some of our developments have, you know, the sunken in drainage, or is it gonna be like a usable space?
We haven't moved to the point yet of actually designing what the final space will be
Yeah, I'm
like.
getting ahead of myself, but I just hate that on some of our other ones where,
Sure.
you know, it's just like an unusable swamp.
And our, as a designer, our goal is to try and balance cost versus impact. You know, what can the owner afford it and has the greatest impact with that? And unfortunately, below ground water storage is very expensive compared to just depressing an area over a large area. But again, if that's something that the city would prefer that the owner try and explore, we're happy to listen to those comments and see what we can do. The goal would be to try and create a nice looking space, something that looked open and inviting and not like a lot of other lower park areas that are very obviously set up as retention basins.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other public comments? Come on up and just please state your name for the record.
I'm Kurt Smith. I'm son of Darrell Smith. I was raised in Midvale. My father spent over 60 years in Midvale. He was with the Planning and Zoning Commission for 16 years. He sat on the chair for 8 years. We developed that property from a hayfield. It's family-run business. My wife's got her management company that manages the business. We take pride in our buildings. Everything is well kept. If you ever drove by them, they're very nice and kept up well. And we take pride in our units. We're not like maybe some of the out of state or, you know, apartments that are ran by other places. And on the approval, and when we do develop, it will be something that we'll be proud of. And like I say, we're local owners. We were raised in Midvale. And I guess that I wasn't planning on saying anything. Here I am.
Yeah,
We appreciate it. And from what I've heard from many residents there is that a tight ship is run and no nonsense is put up with. And
It shows from the outside.
yeah, I know a lot of neighboring folks appreciate that about the community.
Okay. All right, last call. Any public comments? All right.
Mayor, I move that we close public comment.
Second.
Here we have a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay. Public comment period is closed. Move on to this action item. Approve ordinance number 2024-003, rezoning properties located at 8253 South Main Street from regional commercial to multifamily residential, medium to high density. Any other questions for Vendaline, the applicant, or discussion? Not, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve the rezone located at 8253 South Main Street with the findings noted in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Rory, would you call roll, please?
Yes, Councilmember Billings,
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
and Gettle.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. All right, moving on to item B, consider a Midvale City initiated text amendment request to amend section 17.7.410 B1D3 of the multifamily residential medium to high density zone, allowing a maximum of 5,000 square feet of neighborhood commercial in the Midvale City Municipal Code. Vendaline.
Thank you. I will, now that the PowerPoint works a little better, I'll just go back to the potential concept plan. The building that's shown in the upper, the northwestern corner has a note underneath it about neighborhood commercial. And that's how we are getting to this agenda item to change the text in the RM25 zone. The reason is that currently the neighborhood commercial portion in the RM25 zone only allows 1,000 square feet of neighborhood commercial. that may have been sufficient in, decades ago, but nowadays that's such little square footage that you can hardly probably rent any space out for commercial use. And that's why this is before you, and it's driven by the zone map amendment that you just looked at, and the change is really just that the proposal is to swap out the 1,000 square feet for 5,000, as you can see on the screen here. And as staff, we feel that this is a good idea, especially in this higher density zone, because you have some critical mass of people who may actually frequent a smaller commercial establishment.
I have a general question about this concept.
Sure.
It feels like with mixed use, it takes time to get a business. It feels like for whatever reason, some commercial entities are good at homes and not at business, or good at business, not at homes. So it takes time to fill one or the other, because like we're seeing across from Hillcrest, I don't think anything's moved in there yet, right? But I want to, so let's say someone puts in an application, in 6 months, they're like, we just want to turn those in, the 6,000 feet into 6 more apartments. Like, are they required to, is there a bonus or something? Are they required to utilize it for commercial? Or can they, like, I'm just nervous, like, can that Hillcrest property go, this isn't renting out? We want to be housing, or, similar like this project, they want 4,000 square feet, they're not finding anyone. We want it to be 4 units now. Can they do that, or are they tied to that commercial?
They're really tied to that commercial because that's how it was originally approved.
Okay.
If they wanted to, I mean,
They would have to ask?
Yeah, they would have to
Okay.
ask. They would have to apply.
All right, that's all I'm wondering, because I feel like, because Murray's a good example. That
Yeah.
State Street took forever, but now there's good businesses there. But I felt like it took years to get something. But in my opinion, making them hold out to get the businesses was the right call, because I feel like, I mean, if I would own property, obviously don't want unused space, right? Like that, you want the whatever, but I want to make sure, they have to ask, because especially like that Hillcrest space, eventually something's going to go in and we'll like it. But, I don't want people to get cold feet too quickly, right?
Right.
Definitely makes it easier to walk your community too, if there's
Yeah.
some services close to you. You're not gonna get, I mean, you're still gonna have to get in your car to do some stuff.
Yeah.
But if you have a hairdresser or something else, you don't have to get in your car and go, you can just walk to it.
And that little, right by where Joe Morley's was, they built those townhomes, and then that bodega that came up, that I was like, what is this? I've already gone into it to buy, like water or something. Like, it's very useful, right? Those little shops. So I want us to make sure we can hold out, because I was even like, this is weird. And it maybe doesn't quite fit the look, but it's so useful, way more useful than, what was there, and just turning into housing. So, I mean, I don't know if everyone feels that way, but I really want to make sure we commit to it, and that they have to ask, right? Make sense?
All right, any other clarifying questions for Vendeline? All right, this is also a public hearing, so I would entertain a motion to open the public comment on this item.
Mayor, I motion we open public comment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
All right, we'll move into the public comment on that. Do we have any public comments on this item? Come on up. I know it's silly, but if you just state your name again.
Good, I understand. Carl Green, West Jordan. Again, this wasn't our original idea when we applied for the rezone. We were just preparing for the minimum that was allowed in the code, and it was very nice to be approached by the planning staff. It's their idea, so don't blame us. It's their idea. They thought that it would be very beneficial to provide this type of a provision in this type of a high density. One of the questions that was asked during the planning commission meeting is whether this would apply to other residential zones, and the answer was no. This applies only to the high density areas. And we felt that that really allowed us to seek what we were originally looking for, and that was more of a mixed use type of an application for the area, because where it's at in the community, that makes the most sense to us as something to develop going forward. So we really liked the idea of increasing that, because it now made this a much, from a designer's point, a lot more fun to work with. But we also feel that it gives back to the community something that will provide a lot more amenities than just providing housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Kurt, I'm gonna look at you if you want to comment. You don't have to. I just want to make sure you've got the opportunity.
Everything's good.
Okay.
I did bring out though that my wife, the manages the apartments, her father still lives on Grand Street in Midvale.
Great. Well,
Everybody is.
thank you, Kurt.
Mayor, move that we close public comment.
Thank you. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, public comment is closed. I have to say, one of the things I've noticed myself doing up here every once in a while is as I chair UPD or I've had to chair UFA recently, I get to vote on those. And so then I also will call it and then I will vote. And I've done that like twice up here and it starts coming out of my mouth. And I have to say, I don't vote. So keep doing that though. All right, moving on to this action item. Approve ordinance number 2024-004, approving a text amendment to amend section 177410B1D 3 of the multifamily residential medium to high density zone, allowing a maximum of 5,000 square feet of neighborhood commercial in the Midvale City Municipal Code. Any further questions, discussion? I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, move that we approve to increase the neighborhood commercial square footage in the RM25 zone from 1,000 square feet to 5,000 square feet with the finding noted in the staff report.
Second.
So does he have to read like the ordinance number and stuff, or just saying that, is that fine? Because normally we have to say like, you know, approve ordinance number, blah, blah, blah.
It would help.
I can just redo it. Do you mind if you want me to redo it? Or does it not matter?
I don't think it matters.
Well, maybe I can just clarify that it's for ordinance 2024-004. As is in our packet. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Councilmember Glover,
Aye.
Robinson. Aye. Brown,
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
And Billings.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you, and thank you for your patience tonight. I know it took us a while to get to this point in the agenda. No, we appreciate it. All right, moving on to the consent agenda, which is one item, consider minutes of March 12th, 2024.
All right, I motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Thank you. Any discussion on that? Rory, if you call roll, please.
Yes, Councilmember Robinson. Aye. Brown,
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
Billings.
Yes.
And Glover.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. Moving on to our first action item of the night, consider resolution number 2024-R16, authorizing the mayor to execute the revised and restated interlocal cooperation agreement between public entities governing the Unified Police Department of Greater Salt Lake.
That's a mouthful. And Matt, you mind doing the slides for me? So I apologize. I've come down with something today and I apologize for not leaving enough time to sort this out. So I will try and make this short and sweet since it's largely something you've already heard. Tonight, we have the opportunity to adopt a revised and restated interlocal agreement that governs the Unified Police Department. This has been a process that has been negotiated and drafted since August of last year in preparation for the changes with Unified Police Department this upcoming July. Just by way of background, as you are well aware, last year there was a bill that removed the language that required a county sheriff to be the head of UPD. And it was communicated by the sponsor of that bill that he had expectations, even though this bill did not require it, he had expectations that the Salt Lake County Sheriff could no longer be the CEO when this bill went into effect as of July 1st of 2025. The sheriff indicated that she would end up be ending her role as the CEO of UPD on July 1st of this year. And Salt Lake County has indicated that it will be withdrawing as well from UPD. Some of the other reasons that this is the appropriate time to do this restated and revised interlocal agreement. As you well know, the membership is not what it used to be. There's been a number of entities that have come and gone, and those are all listed essentially as amendments. If you looked at the governing document, you would be under the impression that there are some communities that are still part of UPD who have departed, and you would not be aware of the inclusion of the metro townships. In addition, during the lifetime of this agreement, it's been amended 9 times. And even as attorneys trying to sort through 9 different documents in addition to the original document can be a little bit confusing to piece together where things currently sit. So the goals for this, one, as you well know, UPD is not dissolving. It's not going anywhere. The same organization that exists currently is going to be the same organization that exists after the sheriff's departure. And that was one of the goals we wanted to make clear in this revised and restated agreement, is that this isn't a new police department. This isn't, people are then getting, the officers will be getting their paychecks from the same place. The residents can still receive the same service that they're currently receiving from the officers in their precinct. We also wanted to combine those 9 amendments to make it clear and to be able to work from one agreement. And then this was kind of a twofold goal. This was the perfect opportunity to, with it reopened, to address some of the concerns regarding governance and accountability of the senior leadership of UPD, and to be able to strengthen the organization as a whole, with the hope being that as we provide that strengthened UPD, we'll also have the framework for future members to join if they so choose. We had a committee, and like I said, with those goals, that was what we were trying to achieve with each of those drafts. We've met once a month since August until I think last month, when the board finally adopted the final draft. I'm not going to go through these, but as you can see, the scope of this agreement is quite substantial. A lot of this you will see was as we'll discuss in a minute, was from the original interlocal agreement and will carry over. And a number of these are also a number of the things that are now addressed in this interlocal agreement. So the things that are going to be remaining the same. The division between precinct services and shared services. The goal is to not see any difference in the level of service that Midvale is seeing on a day-to-day basis. That we'll still see the same number of officers in our community. They will be hopefully the same faces, and they will be doing the same responsibilities that they did prior to the sheriff's departure. The shared services, the things like HR, legal, finance, and so on, will still all be a shared service that will be shared by the organization as a whole, as well as some of the detective services and training services. One of the things that remains the same is that the member fee will remain the same through this process, and it leaves the ability for the board to adopt, to adjust that budget, or sorry, adjust that fee. So the precinct formula will be set, but any of the shared formula can be adjusted by the board. I know that the mayor's had conversations and about making those changes with the support of UPD staff, and that's something that may come after the passage of this agreement at some point of adjusting the shared service formula to something that is more fair for the communities who pay in, as well as easier for their finance department to be able to apply. So voting will remain the same with the interlocal. The board of directors each have one vote on non-finance issues. And for budgetary matters, 2 board members may request a weighted vote. This was something that was requested some time ago to provide more flexibility or more control for those who provide a larger portion of the budget, so that they have more say in how those dollars are spent and not allow potentially other board members to dictate what someone else's budget may end up being. One of the other things that has been added is a few years ago, the board added a preliminary budget increase maximum. We can thank our city manager for that mouthful. But that has already been adopted for this upcoming fiscal year. And this is something that will continue to be in place. In other words, this mechanism works by the board establishing the maximum percentage of an increase that they are comfortable with. They tell the CEO what can our community afford based on the needs that we're seeing. And it's up to the executive to come back once that's passed to say, this is what I'm proposing that stays within your budget. The merit system will remain the same. This doesn't, there is a small difference. The sheriff's merit system is set by statute. UPD is divorcing itself from that because it won't be required to do so, but otherwise everything else remains the same. This will provide the board with the flexibility that if the state legislature, for example, changes the way that the sheriff's merit system works, the UPD board will have the flexibility to continue the current trajectory that it's going on. Dissolution remains the same. If for whatever reason there's a unanimous vote of the UPD communities to dissolve, everything, assets and liabilities, will be split equally amongst all of the members. So some of the biggest differences and the most important differences, as you can see on the left, currently there's been quite a bit of concern both internally and externally within the UPD community of having the Salt Lake County Sheriff being by law the CEO of UPD. And it means that she's accountable both to the UPD board as well as all of Salt Lake County voters. Under the proposed change, this will be eliminated. The board will be the one to select the UPD chief and CEO, and that executive will be directly accountable to the UPD board and the UPD board. The executive management as well has specifically been called out that they must be approved by the board. So they'll be selected and recommended by the CEO, but they must be approved by the board. They have specific responsibilities to directly report to the board. So they have an independent duty not to per se to the CEO, but to the board itself. And they also can be removed by the board.
Can I make one clarification? Just that as a reminder, so Chief Mazarin, he will be our interim CEO and Chief of Police starting on July 1st, and we'll be taking those 2 positions and combining them into one. If I just said something wrong, Garrett, you can correct me, but
that works for me.
So what you're seeing there is a little of the layout just because of that change.
All the precinct chiefs, one of the differences as well is the way that they're appointed. Precinct chiefs will be again appointed by the UPD chief with the approval of the board and specifically the affected members. So as you can see, there's two precinct chiefs that serve two separate communities. Both of those communities will need to have consensus on who their chief is. If there's a disagreement or there's a problem, either the UPD chief or an affected member can request that that precinct be reassigned. And then if there's still no resolution, it ends up being a board decision whether or not to keep that precinct chief there. Member fund balances are recognized in the interlocal. However, they're not promised. So the current fund balances are vested to the communities that have built these up at their precinct level. But the UPD executive staff is still sorting through some of the legal implications, and they've left the flexibility that if those need to eventually be drawn down or done away with and only one fund balance be available to all of UPD, they have that, the board has that flexibility to do so. The amendments, currently the amendment process is the interlocal can arguably be amended with a 2/3 vote of the board, and then everyone is required to execute that amendment. The new amendment process aims to provide more consensus from all of the members. So a proposed amendment will go before the board. If approved by 2/3 of the vote, it will then go to the member entities for 60 days to provide their feedback. And then it will come back to the UPD board and again need to be adopted by 2/3 of the vote. This way, members, each of you don't need to worry that mayor, whoever the board member is, isn't voting for something that will harm your community by amending the UPD agreement. It will allow you to provide your feedback and your express your voice on that issue. And if you're still not satisfied after the board adopts the final amendment, if you don't ratify it within 30 days, it automatically becomes a notice to withdraw, and it becomes that 1-year period of beginning to separate from UPD. The admission process currently just needs to be voted by the board. This again requires some additional requirements, that a feasibility study is done, with the intent being if someone brings questionable equipment or things along those lines, and UPD needs to make a significant investment, that will be known up front and be something that can inform the board. Based on whatever that looks like and based on ratification of the member entities, essentially a new member will come on board and their admission will be governed by a separate document that locks them in for a certain period of time, depending on what that feasibility study looks like, to guarantee that UPD doesn't ever take a loss by admitting a new member and having that person then leave prior to UPD having its costs covered. The withdrawal formula has changed. This has, I think it's up until 2019, UPD did not have a withdrawal formula. And then since then, there's been several variations of this. With this particular agreement, the withdrawal formula will be set in the agreement, and it will require if someone withdraws and they're vested, they'll receive all their precinct level assets, and that will be it. But they will not have any claim to any of the shared assets, like SWAT vehicles or things along those lines. And if you fail to pay or budget for this, then it will, again, essentially start the process of removing that member, and there may be additional consequences consequences, like the member not receiving any of their precinct. They'll forfeit their precinct assets as well as their member fund balance. Any questions after this exciting presentation?
I'll just say quickly, Chief Mazarin, with so many communities part of UPD, Emigration Canyon is also meeting tonight. And every community a part of UPD has kind of expressed where they're at based on engagement, based on other conversations. Emigration is the one who has shown they're the most on the fence. And so when he had to choose between being here tonight or being there, he wanted to be there to make sure he could answer any questions. But we do have Chief Thomas here, Lieutenant Malone, who I think can give some insights. I'm also happy to try to answer any questions. Matt has been engaged a lot in this process, and then especially Garrett as well. So,
Garrett, are you able to find the slide? And I wanted to stop you, but you were on such a roll. There was a slide that said current governing board, I think, and it was, yeah, keep going.
So I think it,
Right.
was it the?
Wait, that one. Yes, this one. So just looking at this, I notice the thing that jumped out at me, there are two folks who, one elected official from Salt Lake County and one mayor's deputy, I think, Aaron Litbeck. So will those two roles change on the board of directors?
They will essentially be eliminated.
Okay, that's what I was,
Yeah, Salt
hate
Lake,
to say this, that's what I was hoping. Because it didn't make sense, right, to keep them.
Salt Lake County will no longer be a member of UPD with this amended and restated, as well as Slovisa, which they're also a member of.
So how will this change? Just visually, those two will be eliminated. Will there be two additional seats added, or will it just be the remaining folks on this chart?
It will be one vote per entity.
we'll
Okay.
just go from 11 board members to 9.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? And if we can skip to the end, Matt.
Well, any other comments? There's been a lot of work. I'm excited that we're here at this point. Really appreciate, I mean, the amount of time that this has taken on everybody's part. We're not done. This is just a big step. But even as we've considered our own options and the way that that's pulled in Public Works, Mariah has been pulled in and Nate has been pulled in. Adam, you're sitting there. You've probably been pulled in somehow. But Chief and Lieutenant Matt, it has just been an immense amount of work. And I think all of us kind of knew that going in, but I couldn't even tell you the hours that everybody has put into getting to this point where we're at. I do think that as we go through this and, we'll have communicating to do with our residents on let me say whatever this decision is, because I don't know for sure how y'all will vote. But I'm really proud of the work that we've gone to at this point. The other thing I just want to say on this is, we've got the board still, once everybody signs their local, we still have to officially appoint Maz. It's just we set it up so he would automatically become the interim chief and CEO. At this point, I don't believe that, I haven't heard from any other board members that they want to go any other direction. But huge credit to Maz for keeping us within what was requested of him. If going back a while, the board came together and asked Mazarin to stay within a 7% increase. That number is not a magic number, but it was really looking at the 3 cities, kind of the combination of our population, and looking at communities of similar sizes and what they pay for policing, and what on average there we kind of had a 7% buffer. And so we gave him that direction of going, hey, we should be able to have a pretty nice department and be able to keep within that 7%. He came back and that reorganizing costs across the board. Now we take a greater share of shared services, so we are not this number, but across the board came back with a 4.6% increase. And with that preliminary budget increase maximum, the really wonderful acronym that Matt Dahl himself came up with that everybody forgets.
No one told me no.
That's right. the board has set that at 7%. And so what we're looking there just, you know, is a 3% COLA for every employee at UPD. That hasn't been officially voted on, but the board did vote on the 7% PBIM, recognizing that, you know, Maz was able to come in under that, but we're at about 14% with that, just the reorganizing costs. That 3% COLA puts us at about 15% of an increase. And so, you know, I think everybody recognized that we were already we were willing to work within that wiggle room and recognize that for some communities it was going to be more of a challenge than others. And I just think we've had some good partnerships, some good debate and negotiations on this interlocal, and I think we're seeing the board really work hard together to make sure that we can continue on and work together, and even as we're moving in immediately into this new budget year. So,
Mayor, did the county ever come up with that, how the assets are divided, or?
No, so
So how do we really know what the actual cost is gonna be until that happens?
I can try to answer, but I don't know if I'll have the equipment is ours. Am I saying something wrong? I like by and far, everything in UPD is UPD's. And so it is an oddity of the sheriff's office has still not gone to the county council and presented a budget. And so we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. And so we have, I'll say I have hope that I think there's still some areas of where we're at now of still being able to find cost savings within this. Specifically, at this point, the sheriff's office is planning to recreate canine, SWAT, forensics. And we've been encouraging the sheriff's office to contract with us. But since they haven't gone to the county council and proposed a budget yet, I mean, the sheriff's office can go ask for whatever they want, but the county council still has to approve it. And we don't know what they're going to approve. And I know that they're budgetarily pretty tight right now. And that may incentivize the sheriff's office to come and contract with us for some of those services. So there are also some of those details. Again, there's still a lot to work through, but I think we feel pretty comfortable, confident where we're at right now.
And that would be my concern, is just, I mean, it could go up or down just because of what they do. Okay.
And within, and also just, you know, within that 7%, with the 3% COLA, that put us to a 6.7% increase. I think it was just under that. And part of, actually, it was a little lower, 6.48 and then like 6.5 then. But we're also trying to build in a little bit of wiggle room there, just because if some number comes back that was off for some reason, we don't want to be in a position that that Mariah's got to go back to the drawing board and figure this out. So we're all trying to avoid that, but I think we feel confident right now. And I think Mazarin feels good about that number. And again, he's been able to hold us underneath that. So.
Thank you.
Can I ask one clarifying question? I know that we have designated Chief Mazarin as the next CEO. I was under the assumption that he worked for the county sheriff's office, or is he's
UPD. So
okay.
yeah, there's the way that it's worked is Maz is fully UPD, the sheriff is split between us, and then the sheriff also has an undersheriff, which is fully county. And so she kind of oversees, she's got two directly under her, that one sheriff side, one UPD side. And so no, Maz is fully UPD. So the county is technically paying 20% of his salary right now because they do pay 20% of the organization.
Okay.
And so that is going away, but he is a UPD employee.
Okay. Follow-up question. Whenever, you know, in the future, whenever Maz isn't the CEO, you know, someone else will have to do it eventually. How would that process go? Will it literally be anyone could be appointed by the UPD board, kind of like you don't have to be a member of the House of Representatives to be Speaker of the House? Or is it someone within the UPD structure would be the CEO?
Well, I'll try to answer this, Gary. You can correct me if I say something wrong. Now, I think we could say we're gonna have a separate CEO from a chief of police, but if we count them as chief of police, I'm gonna guess that they have to be a sworn law enforcement officer. Whereas if the board wanted to say we'll have a CEO, that could be whoever. Hopefully, I'm not saying anything wrong here. I don't know. As we had conversations about appointing Mazarin into this position, the board actually, I think, was interested in just straight up saying, you are going to be the next chief. The county had some issues with that. And so we said, we'll consider interim. But really with this, we are trying to limit the amount of instability. And so a lot of the feedback that we've received is that Maz is well liked, well respected within the organization. And so I think we're good with that at this point. You know, as we got into the future, I don't know if that would be the same case or we tried to look somewhere else and bring someone else in. And I think we'll have the ability to go through that process when that day eventually comes.
Okay, well, just if you could keep us informed about that process. You know, I obviously think Maz is the person for the job and I'm excited for that chapter, but I am interested to know, you know, what that process is going to look like in the future. I think, you know, it's better to have that planned out rather than, you know, face that, you know, issues that might arise. Hopefully 30 years from now, whenever Maz retires.
I was gonna say, I do not want to be dealing with that anytime super quickly, but you never know. Any other questions, comments? I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
Mayor, I move to adopt resolution 2024-R-16, authorizing the mayor to execute the revised and restated interlocal cooperation agreement between public entities governing the Unified Police Department of Greater Salt Lake.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes. Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
Billings,
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
and Robinson.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. I don't get to vote if I could vote. There's plenty of things we get that I'm like, I'm not upset. I don't have to vote on this, but on this one, anyway, hope that you get that word out to our officers quickly. No more rumors about Midvale, please. So.
Are we the first city to? approve it?
Copperton did it last week. They
They
passed
beat
theirs
us.
last week. Again, immigration's meeting tonight, but everybody has it scheduled within the next few weeks, really. So
We're the first municipality with a population over 500.
there you go.
Yeah.
Hey, Copperton's not a city.
The
So
largest
not yet.
Midvale, the largest Midvale in the world.
There you go. All right. Okay. Item B, consider resolution number 2024-R17, approving an event sponsorship policy.
Good evening. Aaron Summers presented on this, I believe, at the last meeting. What this is that historically Midvale has not gone out and sought sponsorships for our events. There has been interest in starting to do so. The primary thing that this policy does is makes it, right now, if we go out and seek a sponsorship for an event like Harvest Days, I have to bring that to the city council for approval. The primary thing that this policy does is makes it so that if a sponsorship of $5,000 or less is provided, that I, as the city manager, can approve that without having to bring it back to the council. The policy does outline some things that I need to consider in considering those sponsorships, including making sure that they don't have business for the city and don't have conflicts of interest. That is a quick summary of the policy change. I'd answer any questions if you have any.
Are you the person who unilaterally has the power to either accept or reject a sponsorship request?
If it's, yes.
Okay.
Well, sorry,
think
the longer version of that answer is that we are not opening it up so that we have to accept anyone who submits an offer for sponsorship, because that allows it to keep it as government speech. So the goal is that we would go out to seek sponsors. Councilmember Robinson at the last meeting had pointed out the importance of making sure that we're going to local businesses, smaller local businesses. And like, that is our objective with this. And so if a business comes in, and especially if they're under the $5,000, I do have the ability to do so. Within that, while this isn't necessarily spelled out in the code, definitely if there's anything that ends up looking like sort of a gray area, I feel like they are conflicting with the policy, that is something I could still bring to the council if I wanted to make sure I had your support for that decision. But largely speaking, yes, I'd be the first one to assess to see if it violates the rules.
Similar to what I said about Chief Mazarin, it's, I always like to point out that, yes, we trust you and your judgment. We're not always going to be here. You're going to be here forever, of course. So I just always have those reservations about making something, unilaterally one person able to make that decision, because, we might not always have a great city manager like a Matt Dahl.
I'm very appreciative of those comments. I also think that it is possible, but it seems unlikely, that if someone feels scorned by my rejection, that it also seems likely that the council would probably hear about that and have the ability to still request that sponsorship come to the council for review.
Okay, as long as there is that, some sort of process.
I appreciated I think Aaron, we'll give credit to Aaron this time.
Yeah.
Took feedback and read through that today, and looks good to me. So appreciate the work on that, and hopefully we can improve harvest days. Harvest days will be able to use that this year.
Yes.
Great. We'll see how it goes. Any other comments, questions?
Did we decide, there was question whenever Aaron presented about political sponsorships, because normally we do allow political candidates to have a booth, be an entrant in our parade. Has that been decided that they will not be able to be sponsors of Harvest Days?
In this particular case, we do say that sponsors that are doing so in a political or for political reasons or whatnot would not be considered.
And just to clarify, that doesn't mean that's not
Sorry,
necessarily having a booth. That's
sorry, it's not just the booth. Sorry, it's just meaning if someone wants to give money and have their name put on our materials for that event, that the view is that has potentials for conflict or other difficulties that we figure would just be easier to not have that be the case. That's what it says now. I mean, if you wanted to end it, part of the reason that we have that, I know that discussion was brought up, but what we're trying to do is also mirror some of the language that we use with regards to like our murals. I know there's some difference there, but like when we talk about how we make decisions on which murals are going to be selected, it references that they can't be political, they need to be family friendly, and some other sort of phrasing like that. And we were kind of using that same reasoning here.
I guess I think generally that's a good idea. I mean, there are political candidates who would, love to give money to the city and for good reasons, and probably some who would like to just be on the city's letterhead for not so great reasons. So I guess as long as we're not unilaterally, as long as we're enforcing that, no political candidates whatsoever. Once in a while you get a political candidate who also might be a local artist who then is, in a space where their local artistry is sponsoring the program, but not their political candidacy, which is concurrent.
Admittedly, I mean, there still is some in the example that you provided, as well as some others, there's like a weird gray area, because if for example, person A donated as person A, and they're running for office, is that political? Versus if it's candidate for office person A giving money from like their their campaign funds and they're seeking that our promotional materials say campaign of person A, right? And so we'll have to work through some of those, but largely if it's going to be political, we're saying we're not going to accept that.
And it might be something worth looking into to say that if you, at the time of harvest days, are a declared candidate for a political office, then you probably shouldn't be able to sponsor it, because, you know, there are a lot of, I mean, most political candidates are business owners, or, you know, have something that they could say, this is for, you know, my company, not for me. So let's just be careful with that.
And the primary thing, and again, this is not set out as specific policy necessarily, but it is the intent of staff, is that our goal is that we're going to approach people to be sponsors. We're not necessarily going to say, if anyone would like to be a sponsor, submit an application.
Okay. I'll just add in quickly because our wonderful attorney, who's supposed to not be working and heading home, just messaged me to engage with this, saying Utah code does not allow us to spend money for political reasons. If we accept donations from political candidates or political causes and they have their logo on city things, it may appear that we're endorsing a political candidate or expending money on their behalf.
Sure.
Tell him I said that, but just not as succinct as that.
I'll let him know right now. Garrett, I hope you heard that.
Is he driving?
Garrett, no, he's hanging out because he also still needs to attend the closed meeting.
Garrett is just being stubborn, so doing his job, but.
I don't know.
Okay, anything else on that?
Nope.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor,
I want to hear Councilmember Billings do it, okay?
Heidi's crazy today.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 2024-R-17, approving the Midvale City event sponsorship policy. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Rory, would you call roll?
Yes, Councilmember Gamble,
Yes.
Billings,
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
and Brown.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. Move on to item C, consider resolution number 2024-R-18, modifying the authorization of the mitigation funds for the road home. Yeah.
Thank you. As you may recall, every year since 2018, we have received funding through the State Homeless Shelter City Mitigations Fund. These funds are used to mitigate the impact of the Family Resource Center on our community. Historically, those funds have been used only for shelter resource officers and the accompanying supplies and insurance, those things that those officers need. In this last year, we received because of some changes in the formula that are considered one time, we received some additional funding, which we brought back to the council, talked about, and used for to provide some additional cleanup on 7200 South and to contribute to the construction of the sidewalk that'll be done in conjunction with the Midvale campus improvements that will be done. And so that was originally approved back earlier this year, or sorry, early in 2023. In December of 2023, we were informed that we were going to receive an additional $228,000 in one-time money. With that, because of the restrictions that are placed on those dollars, it was a little bit difficult for us to find all of the uses that we could, reasonable uses with it for those dollars. And so we came to the council and proposed that one, we would use it to fund daily bus passes from UTA that shelter officers could provide to those who need those resources along the corridor, and as also providing additional Narcan. We also, at a meeting in January, asked that $205,000 of that be provided to the Midvale Family Resource Center for improvements of that facility. In addition to that, one of the things we did is in the description of what we wanted to fund, we had indicated that we were asking for $20,000 for permanent flexible housing funding. But it didn't actually make it into the resolution. That being said, There have been some events that have occurred over at the Family Resource Center related to eligible funding for clients of the Family Resource Center. And one of the things that would be helpful in addressing some of those needs for the road home would be if we were to allow and provide the mayor with guidance to tell the state that they can contract with the road home to provide, to utilize the mitigation funding for a variety of things. But why this is all the same as what you approved on the 16th of January. The change that we're making in this new resolution is that it would allow for up to $100,000 of that $205,000 to be used for any use that's allowed within state code and approved by the Office of OHS. What this will do, right now, they just anticipate using about $35,000, but we wanted to provide some flexibility, so we didn't have to come back if they needed to make any additional changes. But this would allow them to use some of that money to provide some temporary housing options for those families that were ineligible for the TANF dollars. So basically, if you looked at the resolution from the 16th, the resolution that we have today, the only difference is that instead of saying that the $205,000 will be used for property improvements and that permanent flexible funding, it'll say that you're going to be using it for those property improvements and then allow for $100,000 to be used for any purpose allowed under state code.
Thank you. Any questions, comments for Matt?
Question, is this gonna hurt us in the future? I know you said it's one-time money, but if they see that we're putting it to these other uses, are they gonna say you don't need this ever again?
I don't believe so. In talking with the legislator who has been the sponsor of the bills that have to do with mitigation funding over time, we're actually using it when we use it like this for what they really want it to be used for. Luckily, Representative Elison, who is one of our representatives, is that sponsor, and we're in regular conversations with them explaining the need for our standard law enforcement expenses. And so I believe that using this would actually be viewed favorably by those who are would have say over future funding and legislation. We do anticipate that this fund will decrease, and we've seen other communities using the funds in this way, and we don't anticipate that it'll be viewed as a negative. There will be new shelters and other things that will be coming on that will adjust that formula, and these dollars will come down. And we've continued to express that as that occurs, we're really going to be, our primary focus is for law enforcement. And so based on those conversations, I don't believe that we'll be penalized for using the funds in this way.
If I just may add on to that, pretty much in every conversation we have around this, at least my messaging on this is, look, the shelter resource officers, the public safety in that area, that is the #1 priority. And if we get those costs covered, then we are open to spending those funds in other areas. And this year is an anomaly, but that's what we're seeing this year, where we've been able to get those other costs covered. And so that means we've got some extra. And so if anything, I just think we're following through on the way that we've communicated about this. And it's really where we see the pressure from either some members of the state legislature or the Office of Homeless Services of trying to spread this into some other areas. And so I think, I don't think we'll anticipate any issues.
Yeah, they also, I mean, they've expressed that they appreciate that we're looking at using it for the sidewalk project. They think that that is fantastic use of these funds. They look at the Narcan and bus passes and those other things that have been approved as all really being almost what they would sort of almost be their preference. And I think that this sort of fits into that category. But everyone who utilizes this fund, the primary thing that they use it for is law enforcement. And we definitely reinforce that every time we talk to any legislator or anyone in the Office of OHS when regarding this topic.
I'm just, that'd be a concern, and I don't mind using it for what we're using it for. It's just, I don't want to see, they say, well, you don't need as much because you didn't use it.
anytime this fund comes up in any way, shape, or form, I am very nervous. It's extremely important to us, and I share your concern. And we are doing our best to
Okay.
sort of communicate those needs to them. And I don't think this will penalize us in any
Okay,
way.
thank you. Any other questions, comments?
You said, just very open-ended, like anything that's allowable under state law, which,
Sorry, anything that's allowed within, now I don't have the exact citation, but there is a narrow window within, 35A 164014 has a narrow band of what's allowed there. And in addition to that, OHS plays gatekeeper. Sorry, the Office of Homeless Services provides gatekeeper role for the utilization of those funds.
okay,
And they have, they would not contract with the road home unless it was allowed within those uses. And then the other part of it is we've been having conversations with the council, or sorry, you're the council. We've been having conversations with OHS and the road home on this topic, and I think everyone's on the same page. I understand where there could be some concerns about this, but again, the primary reason that we made the language and the dollar amount where we are is that we believe that there's a potential that there could be some flexibility in what the usage of the funds are called or how it combines with another program. And we don't want to be in a situation where it's doing the stuff that you guys are expressing that you have interest in it doing without having to come back for minor changes.
okay, so allowable under the code, which is very narrow into what those funds can be used for.
That's right.
Okay,
We
much more comfortable.
We
with that.
spend a significant amount of time within the legislative session trying to expand what those uses could be. And they keep it fairly narrow.
All right, last chance. I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 2024-R-18, a resolution modifying the authorization of the mayor to direct additional state homeless shelter cities mitigation program funds to the road home.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes. Bless you. Councilmember Billings,
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
and Gettle.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you, that passes. As we're moving into the next item, I'll just say I just got a text from somebody who's very well tied into the UPD situation, letting us know that immigration passed. I don't know if it was the interlocal or resolution. Chief's not sure, but they passed it unanimously, and so there you go, another community down. All right, item D, consider resolution number 2024-R19, authorizing the mayor to execute the festival lighting and city hall improvement construction access and transfer agreement with the redevelopment agency of Midvale City. Kate?
Yes, thank you, council. Thank you, mayor. I am bringing before council authorization to execute a construction access and transfer agreement. There will be an item very similar to this during the RDA meeting. It'll just be the reverse. This one will be with the city signing to enter into the agreement with the RDA. So as many of you know, this spring, the RDA is funding and managing two significant construction projects within Midvale Main Street. The first being the City Hall Plaza and Streetscape Improvements Project, as well as the Festival Lighting Project. Both of these projects are taking place on city-owned property. So it has required an agreement the agreement essentially grants the agency access to the property to provide improvements on the city-owned property, and then it outlines the transfer of ownership of the property and the improvements, as well as the maintenance responsibility back to the city upon completion of construction and then the warranty period. The plaza is happening hopefully within the next few weeks. So we're hoping that council can suspend the rules so that we can get this agreement executed and we can start those improvements as soon as possible.
Okay, questions, comments for Kate? You said it will start in the next few weeks. Construction.
Yeah, so we have the agreement tonight, but essentially they had a start date that was for yesterday, but that didn't line up with when we had council meetings and RDA meetings to authorize the agreement. So that's been delayed. They can start prep by fencing off the area within the next week or so, but then actual construction will begin, they said, in about 2 weeks. So.
All right. Pretty exciting.
Yes.
All right, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we suspend the rules and adopt resolution number 2024-R-19, authorizing the mayor to execute festival lighting and city hall improvement construction access and transfer agreement with the redevelopment agency of Midvale City.
Second, unless Heidi wants to second it too.
Not tonight.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Lori, would you call roll, please?
Yes, Councilmember Glover,
Aye.
Robinson. Aye. Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
And Billings.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. Heidi, I don't know if you had coffee or something beforehand. I'm not really
She's
sure,
amped
but
up.
man, making all the motions. Love it.
I'm just proud.
I'm very proud. Item E, consider ordinance number 2024-005, amending chapter 932-090 of the Midvale Municipal Code regarding alcoholic beverages in public parks and public spaces.
Yes, so I am bringing back these amendments for adoption. Just as a quick review, the chapter 9.32.090 currently prohibits the consumption and possession of alcohol in all public property and public right-of-ways. This amendment would allow for the consumption of alcohol on both public property and right-of-ways under certain regulations and conditions. Those conditions include an approved site plan. This means that anybody who's applying to obtain a liquor license to serve in these public areas will have to include a DABS approved site plan and file that with the city for their review. In addition, they will have to comply with all state and local regulations, and they have to adhere to those in order to maintain that license. Any questions?
I've talked to a lot of citizens of Midvale, and most of them are fine with Main Street. Most of them are not fine with the parks. They don't want them in the parks. And that's my opinion.
Can you just maybe talk about that a little bit? Because I have some uncomfortability with that as well, and have heard maybe not as many folks as Paul or Councilmember Glover, but have heard, just some reservations about allowing alcohol in our city park. So I understand Main Street, obviously, that's a place where people can eat and have meals and alcohol. It sounds great, but how would it apply to, let's just pick our Midvale City Park? Like, how would this ordinance impact someone's ability to consume alcohol openly in the public or in the city park?
Yeah, so right now it would be allowed under the regulations outlined above. So they would have to go through DABS and provide them with a site plan that shows that they're following all the regulations outlined by them. They would then have to provide that to us as they're obtaining their liquor license, whether it would have to be temporary because you can't operate a full-time business in the park for an event. And both the city and the DABS would then follow through and ensure that for whatever event it is that they're following all those regulations. I would have to defer to Garrett on whether or not we can, yes, Garrett, on whether or not we can specify that it's only public right-of-ways or public property only on Main Street, or if it has to be.
Can you
City
exclude
wide.
green space? I mean, that would be, because it couldn't, outside of Main Street might be applicable, sorry. Like by Zion's Bank or something, right? Like if they wanted to, if that roadway ever gets done,
Yeah.
that's never gonna get done.
Like it's this amendment,
applies to special events. It doesn't just open up the parks for anyone
Yeah.
to consume alcohol. It's for special events which need a site plan approval and the DABS approval. So there is that limitation as well. It's not just kind of opening it up for anyone at any time.
And does anyone know how often, you know, DBS gets, or whatever they're called, gets these applications, how often they approve them? I imagine it's pretty strict. And I imagine they turn a lot of them down or make a lot of adjustments or have a lot of requirements.
I mean, yeah, I mean, their biggest thing is enforcement and ensuring that it's controlled. Like it has to be a completely fenced off area, one entryway, one exit. It's certainly not, people are walking around with an open container unless the entire park has somehow been fenced off. I'm not sure on how many applications they've gotten for within Midvale. I know that there have been a few for events on Main Street that have taken place on private property, but
And we can even reject it even if they get it, right? Like, what I don't want is the park thing. I'm sort of closer to them, but I definitely don't want it during harvest days.
yes, yeah.
So can we say like,
Well,
I know we're gonna have a lot of special things, a lot of special permits, but no, like no harvest days. That's the only one, because if someone does another special event at the park that's just geared towards them, I don't know if I care as much as the other council members, but we're harvest days is like a family community event.
Well, that's our event.
Yeah, I was.
And we can say no,
They
right?
would have to apply
Yeah,
for it,
it's
yeah.
what we want it to be. And so we don't want it at that, or any, I mean,
we control it, is what I'm saying.
we control it. If it's a city event, we decide if it's gonna be.
So, okay, well, that raises additional questions for me, because I assumed that the reason that we were including public parks was to give the ability for a vendor to have a beer garden at harvest days, because that's the only instance of using the public park for that type of event that I could think of.
So
But
that-
this is just for completely private events, not city run. So like if the Arts Council, for instance, I don't know why they might, but during the concert series, they could apply for all of this approval and have alcohol if they wanted to and got the approval for it at the city park.
Yeah, if they were running it as a private event and they got all the necessary approvals, including a license from DABS and then a local consent from the city, as well as an approved event permit for the park.
But if we're not getting those requests now, like, has anyone ever reached out and say, hey, I want to do an event in Midvale City Park and we want to have alcohol? So why don't we just do the public places where I think it's very, very appropriate to have a beer garden or some of those things set up during special events?
So two thoughts before she responds, because I want to piggyback on that. One, I would probably I have the same feelings about harvest days as I do at the concert and parks, and to me, I kind of tie them together. Where there's these big family run events that the city does that are outside, I would want to exclude those, right?
I use that example.
No, I know you did,
just
but I
because,
just want to
like,
make sure that's,
I
I want
can't think
the
of
city
anything
to know
else.
my feelings on it, is what I'm
Yeah.
getting at. But on that same note, in this instance, let's say the Midvale Arts Center, right, the old city hall. Let's say the improv troupe wants, they have like they do their festival, right, of improv, and they want to, which they haven't approached me with this, so this is just a hypothetical so I can understand it. They want to, at the festival, so not, weekly, once a year, sell alcohol or something like that. Would this work for them?
At the park or within the building?
In the building?
So state law prohibits the selling or serving of alcohol within any sort of government building.
But
So
if they
could
did
do
the
it.
parking lot, meeting all the requirements.
Yeah. it might be
So I
against the
understand,
church, But
there's like that's what I think some people might not realize is that it's not the application process is not easy. There's like a billion things, right? But
So as we're going through the approvals, we would be looking at state law. We'd also be looking at proximity. I believe in looking at DABS, they have the right to deny, like you're supposed to show where you are in proximity to schools, churches, any sort of community buildings. And on all of their documents, it says that they have the right to deny any application based on that proximity.
So the community center and the kids club would probably make approval at City Park very hard. Boys and Girls Club.
It depends.
I'm just
Their
trying to
policies
let
are very
everyone know
black
it's
and
fine.
white,
Yeah.
but I think that, I mean, there's a chance, and obviously if DABS denies it, then we can't take it, but that's not to say that they won't. I mean,
I can see Garrett's little bubbles on Teams just typing, maddeningly. He says the parking lot would probably be allowed because proximity doesn't apply for special event permits.
Could we, and this could just be in the motion that we make, can we remove the public parks portion of this? Keep it to public places, work out these kinks with the public parks, bring it back, we can add it at that time, or we could just table this all together until it comes back with something. Cause I honestly don't feel comfortable with the public park aspect of it. There's not a real good explanation of why we would, what would even be occurring where this would apply. And so I think I think it's appropriate either to remove that or table this until that's explained or worked out a bit better.
And sorry, and are you saying that when you say worked out, are you saying specifically, is there any limitation on using it at the Midvale Park? Or are you saying, is that in all parks?
Well, just raising some of those questions now, it's like we don't have a real good answer definitively to say, yes, this would be allowed, or no, it wouldn't. Like if it's too close to the Boys and Girls Club, if it's too close to the church, there's no reason to pass an ordinance that includes public parks if we don't have a reason to include public parks.
I think we're like, as a city, it would apply, but when I've been working with DABS, they do often have these blank statements where it says that they have the right to deny an application. Now, I haven't seen it happen yet, even with the events that we've had on Main Street. The Tattoo Showdown had a beer garden in the parking lot of Dark Arts when there was still a church in operation on Main Street. So I have yet to see them actually say no. I'm guessing that it's in there in case there is a lot of pushback and the community doesn't want it, then they can go
Well,
ahead.
didn't Garrett say that it doesn't apply if it's temporary? So that's out. They can have it.
And it's a public place versus a
Oh,
public.
my understanding was the temporary through DABS. There was something in there that said that.
Yeah, temporary ones are allowed. The proximity doesn't apply. This is not just for temporary. There's some spaces on Main Street that this would be a permanent one. Proximity would apply in there. But again, with all events that are using any Main Street or any park, the city council is still authorized, or the city manager is authorized to approve those events. So the city council could instruct the city manager that, they don't want alcohol to be permitted in a city park. Even if DABC was approving that, it still would need the city council approval. Now, there is things like the car show that has happened in the park. There might be times when they maybe want a beer garden. The city council could weigh in on whether, under all circumstances, we're not approving anything in the park. But yeah, I mean, I don't think you're really opening yourself up to all of a sudden private events are going to be happening in the park. The ABC is going to give them approval and the city council and the city has no say. The city is always going to have a say in whether their owned property, it could be allowed to be used for something like that. Now, the special events that are on public property, like the Tattoo Showdown, where that is a DABC thing that never, if they weren't using any of the public street, they could do those whenever they want. There's different places that have private events that get special permits for, it's when the public space comes into the equation.
that the city council needs to approve, or the city manager needs to approve on behalf of the city council. I'm not sure if I'm making it any more clear. But the city council, there's not going to be some event that happens on a public park or a public space against the city council's will, the way that this code is written now. Even if it were to be approved by DABC, the city council would still need to say, we want to allow that event or not.
The permitted process does say that they do take into account even for temporary, churches, schools.
DABS, yeah.
Churches, schools, but it's a may, not a.
Yeah, it's a may.
So it's not off the table, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, that's it. Every time I've read a lot of the DABS policies, they have some hard lines, but there's a couple gray areas.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think when we talk about taking out that public parks situation until we get it figured out, we would get it figured out based on the event. I mean, I feel like that's how that would work, is we have this in the thing and then somebody applies and then we work it out at that point. I feel like that's kind of how it goes. I used to do events, and applying for alcohol events is, you go through city council, you go through DABS. It's a pretty, you have to get approval at those places. And it is, I think, we're not going to have the answers to every individual possibility that somebody could have tonight. But when individuals apply, we will be able to dissect that and figure that out.
I think I'm honestly just trying to figure out the point of the ordinance, and if it's to allow people to have alcohol out on the street in a bulb out in one of the restaurants on Main Street, that's great, like perfect. Please do it. Like, please come to Main Street and do that. I just don't see the relevance to the public parks part of the ordinance change, and that's what's troubling me.
So, y'all are making me feel like I'm living out here in the wild, wild west. So, no, it's, I have a few thoughts. One is, because I think the concern is valid. I'm not aware of any requests that has come. I'm trying to think of the events that we have in the park right now, like cruisers for kids, and I don't know.
Maybe like the car show. The car show would be a good sort of private event.
I do know now, I don't know of any requests that we've had for alcohol, but I do know that we've had more requests to use that outdoor amphitheater, because finding that kind of outdoor space is challenging. And I feel like as we look at not necessarily the Midvale Arts Council, summer concert series, but as the opportunity comes to connect Main Street in more to the park, having the amphitheater there, like, I think in the future, we may see people wanting to use, I know we've already had a few requests of wanting to use that. And if there was more activity going on there using that amphitheater, then I could see those requests coming in. Personally, for me, I would support that. I think it would be awesome to, I know not everybody drinks, that's okay. But for all those people that live in that area, of having a nice walkable area, and limiting that encouragement of somebody getting into a car or just bringing alcohol into the park anyway, because I think that also happens. The other thing is, Garrett has sent me a message saying that if we were going to change this, we would have to table it. We can't just edit it on the spot. And so then I get concerned with, I know that we have a lot of Main Street businesses that are getting ready to go, and I don't know, as these folks are talking to tenants, or tenants are considering the coming in, I'm sure this is something they're looking at. And if we are continuing to hold off and they're going, well, what is the Midvale Council like? What are they doing? What are they going to allow us to do? I worry about that. I'm not as worried about the park piece, because, we're not getting those applications right now. And I personally am comfortable saying, approving this, because again, I think it's limited. There's lots of procedures in place. And then if we see something, or we get worried about something, and we have the ability to change it in the future, I just don't know if by continuing to table this, if we are just holding off the ability for Main Street to get to the point where we want it to be. So,
well, we can amend any motion as a body, with 3 votes. And so I will have to respectfully disagree with Garrett on that. So I think that we could do something with an amendment to prohibit it specifically at Midvale City Park if we wanted to. I don't necessarily think that's the best idea, but so far the only thing that we've heard is that it might be appropriate for a car show where someone can drink a bunch of beer and then drive their car home from the car show. So not a great example. Doesn't do much to win me over on that one, but yeah, I have some concerns with this, and I understand the point is, the whole summary is geared towards helping Midvale Main Street, which all of us up here would approve at 5-0 right now. The fact that there's something in here that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense is what's concerning me and giving me pause. We do meet in 1 week due to our weird March schedule, so I don't know that tabling it for a week is gonna make any great difference one way or another. So maybe we should just vote and see how the votes go.
I agree. 1 week delay is not gonna change anything.
And we've made edits on the fly before, so is that wrong every time we've done that?
I don't know if it's a difference between an ordinance and a resolution.
He might just be indicating that if we passed an amended ordinance that way, it might not pass legal muster. So you could pass,
Oh, got it, okay.
you can pass it, but it might not be
Well,
able to
And I,
take effect.
Garrett just sent me the text from state, I think it's a state code saying and that every resolution or ordinance shall be in writing before the vote is taken. And based on what he sent me, and Garrett, I know you can hear me, so maybe I'm gonna say this wrong. But that's the key piece of it. It has to be in writing. I don't know if that's right.
Well, how about this? Because we've got some confusion, we have an oddity tonight. I think that it is correct that if we were to push it off until April 2nd, we could do that. I would my last effort on this is just to say, we will execute whatever policy it is that the council approves. I think that by putting public parks in there, we're just trying to maintain an option in case there is a specific event that comes up that says would be great for Midvale.
Oh, jeez.
That would be great for Midvale. But that they wouldn't come to Midvale Park because they don't have this option.
We're in trouble.
We have the ability to deny applicants that we don't think fit are appropriate for use in the park, but it does maintain an option by having it in there. That being said, if everyone feels uncomfortable with that, I mean, we'll execute this however we need to.
Well,
I mean, we only need 3 people to feel comfortable or uncomfortable with
Well,
it.
I just
so-
wanna, I mean, if you think about the different things that happen, maybe like in Salt Lake City, you have Living Traditions, you have the Arts Festival, you have all those things. That's what it looks like when you're talking about having a beer garden or that available at an event. I mean, it happens.
It happens and it's
All the
it
time,
can be
and
well done if the
yeah.
proper organization handles it. And the safeguards are there for us to still ensure that the city is protected. So, I mean, I think also on surface level, it also appears that the people that do want to host these events, it seems like there actually is a little more rigorous controls.
Yeah, I
in
mean,
place, no
usually-
standard bar.
Usually they're looking for either like a distributor to manage it or a already operating brewery. It's certainly not, at least from my experience, people going to Maverick and buying a bunch of 6-packs and then selling it. It's usually got a little bit more order and like it's more of a business operation.
And I think we talked about this the last time, I think, but these are professionals running this. These are people who have their licenses on the line. This is not again.
Yeah, it looks like if you mess up, there's like a sort of a 3-year whatever for the temporary. I'm still not necessarily sold about the public park, but now I'm interested about this code.
And to me, I've been to events with beer gardens and, I'm not trying to substitute my own judgment here because I don't drink, so I won't be attending the beer gardens, but the ones that I've sat with friends in, like you just sit there and consume alcohol, you can't go anywhere. You're just like normally under a tent. So I don't think that it does any great it doesn't do anything great for the event itself to just have people sitting under a big white tent, drinking alcohol and not participating in the other parts of the festival. But if that's what people want to do, I don't want to discourage them from doing it. It just sounds very boring to me.
Garrett, would you like to add something in? No?
Please don't.
Garrett just said, please don't amend it right now. Okay.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to table this ordinance number 2024-005.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this. Go ahead.
Table it until
Say a motion to table ordinance 2024-0-05 until the city can see if public parks can be removed from this ordinance. Right?
Yeah, I guess just pending clarification of the questions. It doesn't. I mean, if we table it, it doesn't necessarily have to come up ever again, but I guess until such time as those concerns that we've raised tonight can be addressed.
Clear enough? Okay. Did you make that motion then, Councilman Brown? Or was that still your motion? It's like, you just accept those edits?
I accept.
Great.
I
Paul,
accept
you
the
still
term.
second? Okay, we
Still
got a motion second. Any further discussion? Rory, would you
I
go?
was thinking out loud. Okay.
Roll, please.
Yes. Councilmember Daniel,
Yes.
Billings,
No. Glover?
Yes.
Robinson,
No.
Brown,
Yes.
passes.
All right, that's tabled. Thank you.
Quincy.
Okay.
I hate this. Even in the location.
Sorry,
Okay.
so I'm sorry, can I just ask clarification that for those that voted, I don't know for those that voted to table, is it if we came back with more information regarding the park, that would be acceptable, or are you just tabling it so that we could make the adjustment with regards to the park and bring it back without it?
That would be mine without it. Without the parks.
I am undecided on that. The questions that I asked tonight, I don't feel were adequately addressed. And I would like to have more clarification on what opening that to public parks would entail, rather than just, like, I understand what it entails on Main Street, that's obvious, but there seems to be some question among the folks who put this together, what it means for public parks. So once that can be explained and better, just better examples given, I would be more amenable to it at that point.
So, and I guess this, what you brought up was, Garrett, is a little bit different than I understood for some of these kinds of things. So, if we came back with two options that are printed out and they voted on one of those options, one of them with the park in it, one without, I'm getting a nod. So then that way, that's what Paul's looking for, and then, Dustin was talking about wanting more information, so we could bring one back with that in it.
I think what that means is, I think we need to see some examples of what that would look like in the park, other than just like hypotheticals.
Sure.
Which they are hypotheticals, but you know what I mean? Like, because I don't think, I mean, that's adjacent to my area, if it was, some concert venue wanted to use it and sell alcohol, I don't think they would like that, right?
So the perfect example is Arts Festival downtown in Salt Lake. It's fully gated, it's everything, and people are walking around with their beverages, or they're sitting down having dinner, while they're looking at art, and it's a perfectly controlled environment.
But it just seems very unlikely we would get that sort of event, right? So I'm
But we are
curious,
putting art here.
right, but like a full arts festival that goes till midnight in the park
I
or
guess
whatever.
we're definitely not gonna get one if we don't have this in place. Like, we don't know if we will, but I don't think people are gonna come to
I mean,
us.
they'll shut down streets for the arts festival and stuff in the city, right? Like, I've gone plenty of times to arts festival. I think it's
Honestly, I think we just need to hear from our residents if they want us to allow alcohol in our city parks. And if that's on the agenda in our next meeting, I'm comfortable with that. If people come out and say yes, or they come out and say no, I think we should consider it. But, right now, obviously, I just wish that this ordinance was tailored to do what we're trying to do, and that's to get people to be able to drink when there are restaurants on Main Street. So, I would have supported that had that been the ordinance before us.
I guess I'm still a little confused as to like, if we're saying, well, we don't want a concert venue to come and have people, we still can approve or deny a specific event. So I guess I'm still confused as to like,
I think it just becomes hard for us if we allow it and say, yes, you can have
We're saying no
alcohol.
to everyone.
And then we say no to everyone who comes, or, even worse, in my opinion, we say yes to a couple of people. And we say no to one because, we don't really like your organization, or we don't trust you. Once we say yes, I don't see any point to us ever denying the application, unless it's like, some like really strange out there group. But even then, we'd probably have to approve it, because what justification could we give to say no to anyone if we've said yes to anyone?
I'm under I mean, there's how does that make us look? But I'm under the impression that based on our city code, and Garrett, if you could nod again, and I think someone else brought this up earlier, is that we have the right, though, to, right now it just says that if we deny it based off of anything other than age of the participants, uh, age of the participants, character of the people participating, and it's in the code, and I was looking at it a second ago. Says, sorry, the application for each license shall be accompanied by the amount of the license fee required for the chapter. 50% of the required license fee will be returned to the applicant if the applicant is denied a city or state license for reasons other than relating to minimum age requirements, moral character, and or criminal history. And then all applications will be considered by the chief of police, the fire chief, community development director, city attorney.
And Councilman Gettle, you are correct. I mean, that is the St. George issue, right? With the drag show. It is a public forum. If someone can meet all the necessary safety requirements to have a special event, we would be on very dangerous ground to deny someone's application for a rental agreement because of their position, who they are, whatever it may be. We do have a little bit more flexibility with the alcohol consent. That area is more gray. I mean, I wish I could tell you we have unlimited discretion, but I'm sure that just opens us up to be the first lawsuit of something along those lines. But on the flip side, I mean, there is a reason local consent is required, and it is for the city council to consider certain things. So depending on what you want, I mean, we can come back with the two drafts and you can adopt A or B next week or whatever it may be, with or without the park. If you are wanting to consider the park, if that needs to be beefed up to something that you feel more comfortable with, it would be very helpful for staff to understand where those limits are.
Here's my thought on that, and hopefully this is clear enough from my perspective anyway. I think that these two issues are very, very different. One, again, is focused on Main Street, where I think, let's do it. Let's go and do it. And I wish that we could have severed these two and voted on something that just included public spaces on Main Street specifically. I would like to see that as a standalone for us to vote on, and then have a broader discussion as a community if we want to extend that policy into our public parks. I think that would be the easy, I think we probably would have gotten 4 or maybe even 5 votes tonight to do that if it was presented to us that way. But adding that public park, I think, is a different consideration that I think we need public input from the residents of Midvale to see if that's something that they want us to start allowing. I don't think there'd be much argument among the public to allow it where there's restaurants and people consuming alcohol while they eat. But at the public park is a different consideration, and I think that we owe our residents that discussion.
I'm looking forward to one of your famous Facebook polls.
I mean, I agree
That'd
with,
be great.
I agree with that sentiment, though.
So do I.
You know, the business, or it doesn't have to just be Main Street, sort of the business districts, right? Because like I said, what's that linear road by Zions Bank that was supposed to go in and, you know,
Binary.
but yeah, like if there was a bunch of buildings there and businesses, like obviously we'd want that there as well. So I don't want to necessarily, you know, just commercial or business or whatever, and then parks need to be a different discussion.
Okay, hopefully direction enough. Great. All right, so here's where we're gonna get a little funky. So let me first explain this and we'll go through it. Matt, if I say something wrong, correct me. I'm gonna ask that we temporarily adjourn city council. We're gonna go into RDA and go through to action item B. And get through the facade grant stuff, so these folks can get out of here. Then, since we have an attorney who's very good at his job here waiting for our closed session, we are then gonna come back into council, go into closed session, get that over with. So he can leave, and then we will go back and finish the RDA.
So moved.
Okay. I was gonna say, do we need to do CD&E tonight, but probably, right?
If you need me to say the words.
I haven't been told otherwise. Yeah,
Mayor, I move to adjourn temporarily our city council meeting and enter into our RDA meeting and proceed directly to action item A.
Could we amend that motion? to
Oh,
a
my
motion to
goodness.
recess?
Say that again?
Could we amend that motion to a motion to recess?
Yes.
Adjourn will.
Mayor, I strike my previous motion and I will make a new motion to temporarily recess our city council meeting, proceed to the RDA meeting and directly to action item A.
sorry, are we allowed to skip? I don't think we're allowed to skip roll call, public comment. We would just have to start from the beginning of the agenda. That'll be quick, but.
I retract my motion, Mayor. I move that we temporarily recess our city council meeting and proceed into the RDA meeting.
Thank you.
Second, and we're normally like slightly more prepared than this, so to like the two new people here, sorry.
All in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so recessing. It's 10:06. Welcome to the redevelopment agency. Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes, board member Glover,
Here.
Gettle,
Here.
Billings. Here. Robinson. Here. And Brown.
Present.
Thank you. Moving to public comments, any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for a public hearing on the agenda may address the redevelopment agency of Midvale City Board at this point by stepping to the microphone and saying their name for the record. Do we have any public comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move into the consent agenda with just one item, consider minutes of March 12th, 2024. We have a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes, board member Brown,
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
Billings. Yes. Robinson. Aye.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. Moving into our first action item, consider resolution number 2024-08 RDA approving the term sheet between the redevelopment agency of Midvale City and Midvale Main Partners LLC for participation on the Main Street Facade Improvement Program.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Board. So I'm just going to do a brief overview of the scope of work and then the terms for those listening online and for the board. So this is for the Vincent Building located at 7696 South Main Street. The scope of work that they are applying funding for the grant would be the new opening for an entryway, brick repair and painting, new architectural elements or like the restoration of the art elements that would have appeared on the building or still exist from the period in which it was built. New windows, the refurbishment of the Vincent Park sign, lighting, and then hardware. Oh, that's weird.
That's it.
Yep, I guess that's it. No, so I guess I'll go over the term. So the terms, it is a reimbursement grant of $50,000. Now I'm trying to go. So we would have a 10-year easement on all of the improvements except for the Vincent Park sign. For that one, we would have a 30-year easement. It is currently vacant, so they have to obtain a tenant. I believe it's 12 months after they finish the improvements. Trying to think, they need to make available any sort of receipts or invoices verifying that they have spent the money on the improvements provided. I think that's it. And they have 90 days to begin the work once this is approved. And yeah.
Okay, any questions or comments for Kate? No, we had a good discussion on this a couple weeks ago.
Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 2024-08 RDA approving the term sheet between the redevelopment agency of Midvale City and Midvale Main Partners 2 LLC for participation in the Main Street facade improvement program.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes, Board Member Gettle.
Yes.
Glover.
Aye.
Billings.
Yes.
Robinson. And Brown.
Affirmative.
Thank you. That passes. All right, item B, consider resolution number 2024-09 RDA approving the term sheet between the redevelopment agency of Midvale City and RS St. George LLC for participation on the Main Street facade improvement program.
So this is the building that's on the corner of Main Street and Depot Street. The owner is Rick Service. And they've applied for a $75,000 grant for the 2 facades. The scope of work includes a new entryway, brick repair, windows, the addition of exterior patio, including the installation of a pergola, a fire pit and railings, new exterior lighting, and then the preservation of the architectural details that currently exist at the top. Here are the terms. The terms for this agreement, the maximum award is $75,000. It can exceed 50% of the total cost. They all have to go towards the improvements included in the scope of work. The easement will be for 10 years once it's completed. Once the improvements are completed, the grantee has to maintain and keep in repair the facade and improvements. Because the building is currently vacant, they have to, within 12 months of completing the project, obtain a lease for at least 3 years. And construction can begin or must begin within 90 days of final approval.
Okay, any questions or comments for Kate?
We know on that last one, the tenants or, we have an idea that's going in. Do we with this one?
I don't believe so. In speaking to the owner, he wants to get the outdoor dining area in first before he starts approaching possible tenants.
But that makes us quick, the clock starts, right? Like he needs it.
So it's 12 months. Once the improvements have been completed.
Oh, completed. Okay.
Yes,
Not from
yeah.
we say, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I was like, man, what if it takes 7 months to, do it? Okay. That makes
Yeah.
more sense to me.
Upon completion.
I know we've said a lot of great things about the Vincent building, but I think this is another great use of the facade improvement funds. I'm just wondering though, as we come up on the fiscal year, which will end in 3 months or so, do we have any money left in the facade improvement program?
No, so we have used all of the funds available for the program for this fiscal year.
And we borrowed some more or added additional?
Yeah, we can if we get applications in. Right now, the plan is that we're just going to replenish the fund once the fiscal year starts again. Obviously, if we get an application in the meantime, then we'll approach that once that happens.
Okay. Okay, any other questions, comments for Kate? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 2024-09 RDA approving the term sheet between the redevelopment agency of Midvale City and RS St. George LLC for participation in the Main Street facade improvement program.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes, Board Member Glover.
Aye.
Billings.
Yes.
Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
Yes.
And Gettle.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. Okay, now we're gonna feel like we're in circus, because now what I'm gonna ask is that we recess the redevelopment agency. Go into back into council, and then we will go rest, close that.
Mayor, move that we temporarily recess our RDA meeting and go back into city council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, move back into city council meeting. We do have a closed session to discuss strategy sessions, discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property. Is there?
Mayor, I move that we enter a closed session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you. Any discussion on that?